Come right on up, Mr. Cordova. And anyone else who has public comment, if there's a whole bunch of you, you can lie down if not. You can just come up casually.
Yes. I guess it's around the screen. I have to introduce myself like other people, right? All right, cool. No one needs to do that, right? Like Eric Cordova, Vice President. So I want to offer my minute and a half here with an anecdote, and it relates back to the conversation that is going to be had about the building and wherever we go with that. My father retired like a year or two ago. And for the last 14 years of his career, he worked out at the Empire State Building. And at some point as a young adult, I asked him, why the heck are you working at the Empire State Building? Knowing what I knew, like, you can be working anywhere else in New York City. They can get office space for a lot cheaper. And I got into construction recruiting, so I knew damn well how much cheaper they could be paying for rent and things like that. And I was like, your company could move. Now, they're a foreign company. They're a Russian-based company. And the answer he gave is what I want y'all to hear. He said, we are an international company. And the reason that they continue to be based here, and they're not the biggest company, if I throw out their name, none of you would know. But the reason that they were in the Empire State Building is like, they are an international company. They do business from all around the world. No matter who you are around the world, if you come to the United States, one of the things you're going to know if you come to New York City is the Empire State Building. It's a status symbol in a lot of ways. No one's going to know if you work on 62 Park Avenue or you work on 872 Madison Avenue in just a random building. But the Empire State Building holds that distinction for people. Now, why do I bring that up as it pertains to our building? Not because the building itself means anything, but the area does. We're in politics. Politics happen in Washington, D.C. Now, I offer that because I think it's important to have these discussions and figure out how to have a building that suits the needs of the fastest growing party and what needs we're going to have over the next 2, 4, 6 years. But I would urge you to consider that the area is what is important because that status is necessary. We want to be in the game, we want to win the game, got to play the game. Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment this morning? All right. If there's none, let's take a look at our agenda. So we have a few items left over from yesterday. The next thing on the agenda is Market Institute proposal. I intended for that to take place under candidate support committee budget presentations. And the next thing after that is Florida resolution, great ballot access. So I would like to propose a couple of amendments to the agenda. And before I make them, I'm going to just let you know, I want to move the Market Institute proposal. And I'd like to bump up the Region 3 and Region 7 reports, if you guys are ready.
Ready to just.
Now we can do the Florida resolution next. Chief Benner, if you're ready.
Oh, yeah, it depends on me getting a hold of Hector, but
Okay.
I can try.
Okay, so before I make a motion, what's the best order to do this in so that people are most comfortable? So I've got Florida resolution, Region 3 and Region 7, and Region 8 reports.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I also sent you the results of the bylaws election, and the committee needs to elect the interim chair out of those 10, so that's another item.
Can we see the results?
I'm looking for it.
I emailed it, I mean, I can read aloud the names, but I read them to you.
Let me just refresh my very failed. Oh, look, right there. Okay. So let's do a list here. Bylaws results. Region 3, 7, 8 reports. Florida resolution.
Madam Chair, I'm texting with Hector right now. It appears that he can be here prior, so if the region reports go before that, I think it's sufficient.
Okay, so how about we do bylaws results, then region reports, then Florida resolution? Well,
With the bylaws results, you mean bylaws results and elect the interim bylaws committee chair?
I just make an announcement. Do you want them to also do the chair election?
Well, that we have to do that at the same time because they can't meet without an interim. They can't start working. At this meeting, we need to elect an interim chair, whenever it is. It could be later, it could be earlier. I had that as one agenda item, the announcement of results, then election of the interim chair.
Let me find it. Where is it on the agenda?
Let me see where we ended up putting that. Sorry, my voice.
Number 12.
Ah, there it is. I'm fine with doing that.
Okay.
Okay, so should I do these one by one? What's everyone's preference? These agenda movements,
All at once.
all at once, right? Is that
Yeah.
easier?
Yeah.
Okay. So. We left off. What a hot mess. Okay, so we left off at item F. So here's what I'm gonna propose. I'm gonna propose that we amend the agenda as thus. Move Market Institute proposal, which is G, 7G, down under candidate support committee budget presentations. Move item 12. Announcement of, that says bylaws. Announcement of bylaws up to now. Geez, how do I even phrase that?
Up to now.
Up to now, followed by Region 3, followed by Region 7, followed by Region 8 reports, and then our Florida resolution rate ballot access.
Madam Chair, Affiliate Support Committee, maybe right after the region reports?
We're probably gonna do staff reports then, just keep everything else in. If that's okay with everyone, is anyone leaving and getting screwed by me moving these things around? Because I don't want that to happen. Okay. Okay, so we're just gonna wait just one moment to make sure our secretary has it typed up and that it's all kosher.
So, and then staff reports after regional, the Florida,
Then Florida, and then we'll catch up with staff
the
reports.
Florida resolution to after
And
regional
then-
reports. Staff reports. to
Item
after-
I has already been taken care of, I believe, yesterday, correct?
What are they called?
Update on unauthorized use of trademark by former
Yes.
Mexico. Okay,
Yep,
so
yep.
that's already taken care of. All right, we're all good. Okay, so there is my motion.
Second.
Thank you very much. Any questions or discussion on it? Sorry, it's a little squirrely, do my best. Any objections? Going once, going twice. Hearing no objections, the agenda is amended, and that passes. Okay, so let's do the results of bylaws committee. Pull those up for you guys. Okay, the results are, the winners of the election are Sylvia Arrowood, Paul Bracco, Nicholas Sisileski, so sorry for butchering your name, Karen Ann Harlos, Rob Latham, Frank Martin, Kim Molman, Tom Rowlett, Mike Rufo, and Mike Seebeck. So that's 10.
Congrats.
And I will post that on the discussion list. And now we're gonna need to elect an interim chair.
Madam Chair, I move to elect Karen Ann Harless as the interim chair.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to elect Karen Ann Carlos as the interim chair. Believe we should probably do an actual vote on this.
If there's only one candidate,
Madam Secretary, what do you think?
If there's no objection.
If there's only one candidate, it can be done by
Is that,
acclamation.
are we all comfortable with that? Okay. All in favor of electing Karen Ann Harless as interim chair of the Bylaws Committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Hearing none, Karen Ann Harless is elected as interim chair. Thank you very much. Okay. 1 second, I'm putting this into email. Interim chair. And we are going to also elect alternates via a ballot.
So what I'm gonna do now is remove everything from the list that was the 10 that were elected. I'm gonna send out another OPA vote ballot that has all the remaining names. We need to decide how many alternates we want to elect. You can vote for as many as you want, but so that I can give you accurate results, we need to decide how many alternates we want and set a time frame for this ballot.
Okay. Anybody have any ideas on time frame for the ballot? Mr. Nana?
Not time frame, but the number of alternates.
Okay,
I propose that we do 7 alternates.
do you want to make that a motion? Do we need to
Yeah,
make
I
that?
move that we appoint 7 alternates to the bylaws committee.
Second,
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to appoint 7 alternates. How about a time frame? Does our motion need a time frame?
I need to just know when to close the OPA vote ballot.
24, 38, 72 hours, 12 hours?
At least 48 because folks are gonna be flying home tonight.
Right, yeah, I would think 48, I think is,
Do you think 48? Okay.
unless somebody has an objection that they need a little more time, I think 48 would do.
Is 48 hours or 2 days better? What do you-
Well, just give me a time and a day to close it and then I'm good.
How about 10 a.m.?
On Tuesday?
Tuesday,
Okay.
10 a.m. Central. Or Eastern.
11 a.m. Eastern.
Okay,
I'm trying to do everything.
Yeah.
Alternates will be elected via open vote ballot from the remaining 7 alternates. I'm typing this into an announcement at the same time that you're typing this into. Okay.
and the way the alternates, just to make sure everyone understands and if anyone wants to move differently, is they'll be ranked in order of number of votes. If there are ties, because OPA vote won't rank ties, they just say whether they're elected or not. I can send the ties to the chair who can roll a multi-sided die. You could trust me to roll the multi-sided die. We could wait till we're on a Zoom meeting. I don't know how you want to handle it. I would just suggest, if you trust me, is if there's ties, I've got my D&D dice here, and I do a tiebreaker between any ties to rank them. But otherwise, it will be, the highest vote getter will be first alternate, so on and so forth, all the way down to 7. FYI, there's a lot of attrition on bylaws committees generally. I'm really in favor of 7 alternates because we need that a lot. And there's a not zero chance that those 7 may end up being, on the committee. But we usually definitely need a lot of alternates.
Okay.
So if you wanted to ask if there's any objection, I guess, to that tie-breaking procedure, I really don't care how we do it. If we want to appoint another LNC member to break any ties, I don't care. I won't be insulted.
So let me run through what we've got right now. We've got 7 alternates will be elected via open vote ballot from the remaining applicants. And if it's all right with you, Mr. Nana, the open vote ballot will be closed by 11 a.m. Eastern on this Tuesday.
That's fine.
Okay, and then do we also want to incorporate any ties will be decided by a roll of the die by our secretary?
yes, It's not my vote.
Are you comfortable with that?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so that's our motion. Okay, and it has been seconded by,
Second.
okay, seconded by Mr. Okay, any further discussion?
I'm getting it up here, so 7 ranked alternates goes to F7A with any,
And I'll send this off to the list after we vote on
yeah.
it. Okay. Any objection before we go to a vote? And would you be more comfortable with a roll call vote?
It depends on if there's objection or not, I think.
No objections? Okay, going once, going twice, hearing no objections, that motion passes. Thank you, everyone. I am sending it to the LNC list now. And hopefully, while doing 2 or 3 things at once, I didn't screw up that email. And hopefully it actually shows up on the list. So let's go on. I think it went. Great. Okay, our next agenda item is, what the heck did I say?
I believe it's regional reports, hold on. Bylaws, regional reports to after the bylaws.
Okay, so we'll do 3, then 7, and then 8. You good?
Yes,
All right,
I'll just-
on up, whoever would like to present.
I'll just present right here. So starting with Region 3 represents Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, and Ohio. Indiana has been working hard to support their extensive slate of candidates, so they didn't actually submit a report. But Evan, the chair, Evan McMahon, did brief me that a ballot access lawsuit is moving forward in the U.S. Circuit Court. The federal judge has denied the state's request to dismiss a lawsuit led by the Libertarian Party of Indiana, the Indiana Green Party, and independent ballot access lawsuit. The court says a fact-intensive review of the current rule is necessary. So that may be something we will be lending our support to going forward, just making the committee aware of it. Kentucky, from Mr. Randall Daniel. They have just appointed a new vice chair, Charles Altendorf, to the state executive committee, filling a vacancy. LP Kentucky has already won 5 of the 9 races they were running this year, and they are expecting several more victories. While there's a smaller number of candidates, it's a very exciting win rate that includes 2 magistrates in the same county, as well as a 3rd-term city councilman a few counties over. They are gearing up for their 2023 elections, trying to attract a slate of well-prepared candidates to attempt state-level elections. Local would be more ideal, but 2023 is a statewide election in Kentucky, and they hope for 2023 to be a building year. Michigan, the Libertarian Party of Michigan will be replacing its treasurer at their upcoming meeting. And one standout from this election cycle is David Caney, one of our candidates for U.S. Congress District 8, which represents the Flint area, has been the benefactor of approximately $225,000 of spending from a progressive PAC for attack mailers against other Republican candidate in the race. And we generated a press release that's gotten some earned media from the Detroit News. Ohio. Ohio unfortunately does not have ballot access, and the barrier for entry for even independent candidates statewide is very high. Therefore, they do not have any candidates running. However, they are gearing up for 2023 when Ohio has local elections. The state was running a petition drive to achieve ballot access. However, some changes need to be made to the group of 5 people that appear on the petitions. 1 is moving and 2 more we are not sure will be around when we would be filing, which would most likely be in 2024 at the earliest. The drive will cost the Libertarian Party of Ohio several $100,000 with no LNC support. That concludes my report. Thank you, everybody.
Any questions?
Actually, I had one, is there a written report or no?
Yes, I have it right here. I was just about to send it to you.
Okay, yeah, please, just because I need it for the minutes.
Yes.
I'm trying to think if I have any questions. I don't think so. Let's go to our next region then, Region 7.
Okay. So this is gonna be our Region 7 midterms edition report. Okay, so, kind of like most of my report is gonna be centered on candidate elections, because that's pretty much what everybody wanted to focus on. I think everything else, there are other things happening, and I will highlight some of those in certain states, but really everyone's hard at work, and they didn't really want to write reports, and I understand that. Okay, so I'll start with Arkansas. So some highlights for us, aside from elections, is we did win our ballot access lawsuit. That is huge. Everything that we brought to their attention, it was ruled unconstitutional. They will be fighting it because they don't want us to clutter up the ballot, which is what they said. So I do want to give a special shout out to a couple of our candidates, because we have about 2 weeks before the elections, we always have PBS debates, and all of our candidates that we have were on the same debate stage. They were treated with the same amount of respect, and they all got to speak their piece, and they did really well. We have, so specifically, our candidate for governor, Ricky Harrington, he did great, as usual. And then we had 2 other standouts, which I want to bring attention to, is our lieutenant governor candidate, Frank Gilbert. He did absolutely amazing. He's gone viral on TikTok. He's been a candidate before. He's been a local mayor, so he's our pretty, he's a go-to candidate for us. We really enjoyed him. And then if you had seen any clips from Michael White, he is our District 2 congressional candidate. He completely slaughtered both the Republican and Democrat candidates, so I'm very proud of him for that. I did want to highlight his win on that. And so another highlight we'll move to Texas. So they have 63 candidates. They're very hard at work. They have some two-way races, just like we do in Arkansas. Going to highlight Joe Roberts. I believe he's running for State House, District 100. He's doing great, very active campaign, running against a Democrat, so they're hopeful about that. Their ballot access, okay, so they have they've got a few things going on. In one of their federal lawsuits, they were successful at getting relief regarding the requirement of paper petitions. Their specifics are still being worked out as far as how things will proceed. And for their legal fund, in order to fight these, they brought in nearly $40,000, so they completely exceeded their goal, coming in at 120%. And I do want to shout out some of our Oklahoma candidates, including our Hagopian, Natalie Bruno, Will Daugherty, the chair. They are working really hard in Oklahoma on candidates. Let's see what else we have. And then Louisiana, they want to highlight Rufus Craig, possibility of him going to run off as strong. They have a lot of local events for their libertarian registrations during elections, so they are hard at work. I'm going to conclude my report. If you have any questions.
Tell us more about Oklahoma, they sound awesome.
Yeah, they're pretty cool, I guess.
Or like we say, far north Texas, so.
All right, no more questions for Region 7? If not, let's go to Region 8.
Region 8, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't start out with what I believe is the libertarian feel-good story of the year. Of course, that's the candidacy for the governorship of the great state of Rhode Island. Elijah Gisarelli, who I think is known to all of us as sort of an uber national volunteer who has traversed this country selflessly for the Libertarian Party for years, is on the ballot as a candidate. He has been included in 2 debates, one sponsored by the flagship newspaper of Rhode Island, another one sponsored by a long-standing annual high school tradition in which he was both engaging and hella libertarian. So congratulations to him. Campaign signs adorn, if you will, the fields, the highways and byways of Rhode Island, all 44 miles of us. And folks are seeing libertarian in action for the very first time at that scale. New Hampshire continues to impress. We all know about their senatorial candidate. They're going to be actively engaging through, including pocket sideways around the state. Still very optimistic about ballot status. A lot of great events. I think that these guys are they've really engaged with the community at two different levels. They continue to engage aggressively with the Free State Project, which I believe is one of the best opportunities nationally to bring the Libertarian Party to a scale that we haven't seen in that type of concentration. So one of the more fun events they're going to run for the second time, it was wildly successful last time, was a Republican versus Libertarian hockey match. It was peacefully done last time, despite allegories to a certain hockey movie for hockey fans. It might be a little bit more competitive this time, given, well, let's just say the nature of the senatorial race, which is being watched nationally because of the potential for a Republican incursion. And of course, I fully expect Mr. Kaufman to bring to that national race the same thing Mr. Hazel brought to Georgia, which is hopefully intense messaging and sheer chaos. Vermont. Talk about up for the ashes. Vermont had almost ceased to exist. Olga, the state chair, as a team, they're doing an astonishing job. Now, again, understand, the reason why I get so excited about this is because, hey, I love what we do as a group and as a family. But New England, you're starting to see it with some of the electoral reporting, just how deeply blue New England is. If you haven't traveled there either personally or politically, we are Soviet worker paradise come to America. And the utter failure on an urban and a political, even a moral level of politics in New England demonstrates how astonishing the work of Vermont has been. They're running 12 candidates for political office, a number of them on a fusion basis with Republicans. However, all of the Republican candidates have ceded, if you will, to our statement of principles and our philosophy in their case. So there is a real argument to be made that these fusion candidacies that exist are actually libertarians absorbing Republicans into the fold, yet still, if anyone's met Olga knows, maintaining our philosophical integrity. So they are an object lesson how to literally start from scratch. And so when I look to the great work that's being done in Virginia and New Mexico and now Vermont, all of us can really be energized by the fact that despite all these challenges that we have occurred over the last year or two, we are a party arising from this chaos. Maine, much needed conversation was given to Maine yesterday in terms of their ballot access opportunities. And while the lawsuit was not a complete win, the notion that through Election Day 2024, we have got to get 9,000 more, and I say we, because that whole volunteerism gene I talked about, that we have got to get 9,000 more registrants. I believe that's entirely capable. As I mentioned yesterday, they will be taking advantage of polling opportunities around the state where they can get volunteers to, on a approved statutory distance, maintain voter registration to become libertarian registrants in the state of Maine. So again, New York, of course, we're familiar with the challenges there. An aggressive writing campaign is being conducted by Mr. Sharp. A number of these issues, post Tuesday, we'll report through our Region 8 page, which I invite all of you to join. It's a very vibrant page where we post a lot of the ongoings. You don't have to be a member of Region 8. And certainly folks in the LNC, I'd love to have you sitting there just, watching, observing, and participating with your experience and perspectives. So New Jersey, I believe, has got congressional candidates in every district sans one but one. All right. So again, an aggressive campaign from the grassroots, where New Jersey has always been a really good partner with the Libertarian Party, but it's being driven up to an entirely new level. Connecticut, we did have a setback, if you will. From what I can tell, there was an injunction brought against the state of Connecticut to include our candidate on the ballot. And here's an idea where we as affiliates need to each support each other. They had a 7,500 signature candidate goal. They didn't make it. Let's use those kind of setbacks as inspiration for all of us to find different ways to help all of the affiliates, including, sweat equity. Again, I'm talking converts here, but for those listening, the libertarian planet does not begin and end at the border of your respective county or state. We need to find ways to support each other. Financially it would be great. We all know we're all being asked for a lot of that these days. But at the same time, volunteer efforts abound. I'll be making my affiliate support report later on today. And I will tell you that wherever you are in the country, if you want to help with affiliate support, we've got work for you to do. And so on that note, I say Region 8, it's, again, considering where we were just a couple of years ago, where we are now, there's hope for a lot of optimism. Thank you.
Question?
Ms. Harless.
I do too, but Angela.
Nice miss, wow.
Okay, what happened with Dr. Aaron Lewis's campaign?
From my perspective, just not enough volunteers.
Not enough volunteers.
Not enough volunteers. You're gonna hear me say that all day today.
To
Enough
collect
volunteers.
signatures or something else?
Collecting signatures,
Okay.
from my perspective, yeah.
And it was 7,500.
7,500, yes, ma'am.
And then what was the time required?
That was over a period, this is off the top of my head, I want to say about 6 to 8 months. So we should have, we
Yes.
had the opportunity, and I say we, because I include myself in that. All right, I'm never gonna ask anyone to do anything, I will take responsibility for myself, all right? Again, you know, on the other hand, there were competing signature drives around that region at the same time, Rhode Island, well documented. The state that shall not be, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, you know, we got Larry Sharp and all that going on. So,
Do we feel that our volunteers were just stretched too thin in that region?
yes, we need more,
Okay.
absolutely. The people who are working, again, I will always talk about Janelle and Paul from Worcester, who came down with their baby to Rhode Island to petition and got us over the top there.
I think Steve Ginger also has a baby, right?
I'm sorry?
Steve also has a baby, the Connecticut chair.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mr. Dincher and his group are working as hard as
I
possible.
know. It's a small state with people who have got a lot going on. Okay, I'm just trying to think about this in the context of ballot access and other things, like what our needs are. Like, that's a long period of time. And we probably need to be looking at, you know, peaks and valleys of when people are available and not, and start trying to coordinate among the states in that area so that people just don't get burned out and overwhelmed.
One of the things that I'm going to talk about later on in my report today with the affiliate support committee, as you've seen, is the notion of having a pipeline so that those states that need ballot access support, or any support, but primarily, let's be honest, ballot access is the frontier of our country, you know, of our efforts here. Putting the word out, because there's we all know, there's so many different ways besides just standing on the street corner with a signature you can have that. The point being, an affiliate sends out a call to action, the affiliate support committee, talk about it later, but we disseminate that need nationwide, so that anyone who's got some time can find a way just to help.
Go.
I just was gonna ask, is there a written report, is that I have my minutes, or is there no written report?
Written report?
I'll have a report, I'll get it back in 20 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, last question, how's the gubernatorial race looking in New Hampshire?
Zach, I just looked at the poll while he was talking, I was curious. Unfortunately, as many of you may know, there are 2 libertarians running, and well, that's how they'll appear. They will appear on the ballot as both libertarians.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, exactly what I personally thought would happen is happening. They're both polling under 2%. They're both polling about equal amounts. Carlin is at 1.5. The other candidate is at 1.2.
Okay,
Kaufman is at 3.6, I think it said.
okay.
And he needs 4 to maintain ballot.
It's really, like, it's been all over in the polls. Okay, all right, thank you, guys. Okay, any other questions on Region 8? Okay, if there's none, the next item on our freshly polished and revised agenda is the Florida resolution.
Yes, Madam Chair, before I proceed, I just wanted to ask, do I have to read this resolution audibly? I think that will answer like how I want to approach this.
How long is it?
It is very long, so, you know, I don't think it's necessary. I think we can contextualize it enough as long as it's on the screen for our viewers to see.
So I have a request. Let's put it on the screen, and we should maybe email it to everyone if that's feasible. If you want, you can just email it to me and I'll just rapidly knock it out to everyone else so you don't have to worry about that.
I saw it on OneNote yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh, is it on OneNote? Then if it's
Yeah,
on
it's on
OneNote, let's
resolution.
not worry about it.
In
Okay.
new business with prior notice.
All Okay, I wasn't sure if there'd been some changes.
Perfect. So as it goes up on the screen, I'm glad we actually just talked about ballot access because that's the perfect segue to this discussion. So I know that all of us are aware of the different hurdles that are presented in front of us in regard to ballot access. It differs by state quite a bit. And it is one of the most treacherous aspects of the state, no doubt about that, what they hand to us. But this resolution is a way to, in some way, jump over those hurdles, or at least to broadcast the message of one angle in which we can do so. Many of the people elected this board made a big conscious effort to talk about the importance of single issue coalitions and coalitioning with others that might not agree with us on but 10%, but we'll fight as much as we can with them on that 10%. So what this speaks to is a motion that would encourage our Libertarian Party affiliates in the states and the membership to engage in single issue constitutional referendums with newly sprouting political parties, third parties especially, that are in the process of or will likely begin ballot access drives. So the resolution speaks to the Forward Party and the People's Party in particular. So there's nothing actionable about this resolution other than that we're recommending to our affiliates to engage in this type of activity. So that's all I want to say, but I want to call Mr. Roos, our gubernatorial candidate from Sunshine State, to speak to its merits a little bit further, so I can polygon him in here momentarily.
Please leave your message for 305.
I'm going to try one other number actually that he has.
Okay, hello?
Mr. Roos, how are you, sir? You have the entire LNC. How are you?
Oh, okay, well, great, good, hello.
Hello, Hector. Yeah, I've just spoken to briefly to the merits of your resolution. Please feel free to continue to address the body of its merits.
Okay, well, good afternoon, or good morning to everybody. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to speak. And I'll be brief to the merits of the resolution. One of the things that we've always talked about is ballot access in the party. The resolution presents the history of how Florida went from having the toughest ballot access law in the world to one of the easiest now in the country. And that essentially emphasizing that we invest so much time and energy into ballot access fights so that it may be time to look at Florida's strategy of trying to enshrine ballot access into state constitutions as a matter of right, rather than and the way we went about it was unique to Florida, but it still doesn't mean that we can't find states that have easier processes to get a ballot referendum on. The question is at that point, can we build coalitions together, especially with new energy, to try and build a third lane in American politics to do that? And the question of really what it took in Florida is an example that I believe has merit and that people need to hear about. Because it wasn't automatic, it took a lot of work, and it was a multi-year affair as well. So with that, that's the merit of itself. And hopefully we can, if we can start passing these changes for ballot access through constitutional referendums, then we can start diverting those funds that go to the ballot access fights to other types of legal battles. Because even in Florida, even though we have it enshrined in our state constitution, the legislature is right and has written several laws to try and limit ballot access wherever possible. And, our obligation is to try and fight against those changes. And little by little, we have been moving down, but there's always going to be another fight ahead. One of the ways that's been popularized in Florida, and I'm seeing it also take place in other states, particularly the South, has been introducing these seasoning requirements to prevent people and even political parties from running from having fielding candidates. So recently, the People's Party in Florida lost out. We have to guarantee ballot access, but they basically lost the ballot access for a year because they have to wait out a seasoning requirement for a year to be able to field a candidate. So similarly, they try to block other candidates, even the major parties in their primaries to have that this kind of access to the ballot. They've been able to win, essentially getting a court to basically cut the seasoning requirement completely and open up huge loopholes to it. So something that we are planning ahead in Florida is to change the rules to accommodate the loophole and guard against legislative changes that try and close the loophole or try to introduce other legal frameworks to create more prohibitions to ballot access. So those are things that are key. One of the things that I'd like the LNC to consider is helping us identify attorneys who just look at our situation and prepare some legal opinions for us so that we can actually take it and go shop it around to our donors and to possibly get other legal representations in these matters. We don't technically need to see the LNC put in a lot of money into this, like I said before. But the basics, the fundamentals are legal opinion. What can you do with legal opinion? Go to our donors and ask for money, and go get attorneys that will agree with legal opinion and will fight. Right. So that's if those are the action steps we would like in Florida in terms from assistance and help from the LNC. And of course, we have a lot of goodwill and a lot of volunteers that are attorneys, but they're not experts in ballot access or election law. And so that's any way to, any recommendations on how to organize these attorneys, like useful legal aid association essentially would be welcome. And with that, I'll take any questions. I thank you for your time again.
Thank you, Hector. Any questions about the resolution? Yes.
So I guess, I guess you have a constitutional amendment that says ballot access is good, or something like that? Do you know the language of your constitutional provision?
I can't provide it, but essentially means that it guarantees all parties the right to participate to have actual representation and ballot access. It's a little broadly written, but it's done so to protect all the parties involved.
Thank you.
If I can speak on it just for a second, Florida ballot access is so simple that if 3 of us wanted to create a new party in Florida tomorrow, we could, and then someone else could run for president. It's really that simple in Florida. We have the best ballot access in the country. We're very, very blessed to have that ballot access, and it's something that should be an example for all states. And hearing that candidates are cluttering the ballot, or in Tennessee, I believe the legislature mentioned last last legislative session that putting more candidates on the ballot from the parties would confuse the voters. Obviously, this isn't the case in Florida, and Floridians are better off because of it. And so I think Florida really is the model for what we want to see in all 50 states.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, yes, Ms. Harless.
It's not a question for Mr. Roos, it's more debate on the motion. I don't know if that's
fine.
Okay. I'm going to vote for it, but I'm going to also say something, it's not a negative to the content of it. Just begging people in the future to please not submit resolutions that are like 3. it defeats the purpose, to be honest with you. A lot of people are gonna read the first 2 paragraphs of this, their eyes are gonna glaze over. And it's not gonna have the effect that you want. Effective resolutions are like whereas, be it therefore. Really, that's about as long as a resolution should be. There's so much in here that is great, that could be a supplementary article, but I don't think this resolution is gonna have the effect that you want, because I don't think very many people are gonna read it because it's so long. It really should have just got to the, hey, we did this in Florida. I encourage other states that have these avenues to do it, be it therefore resolved, the Libertarian National Committee is committed to encouraging other states to take this route. Because all these things about newspapers and this person and that person, I got lost reading it, and I love this stuff. I'm gonna vote for it. I'm certainly not gonna allow that to not have me vote for it. But just in the future, please, if you want these to be effective, they need to be a lot shorter.
Mr. Nana?
Yeah, I would have to echo that sentiment, and also, just in general, on a personal level, I'm not a fan of resolutions that don't do anything. I think it's a feel-good measure. I think this is a great idea, and we should be doing it, but we need to spend our time figuring out how to do it rather than passing resolutions that say, oh, we're gonna do this, or we recommend this. Let's figure out how to actually get it done.
Okay. Mr. Bowman?
Yeah, so on that note, that was actually one of the questions I had. What was the process actually that got you to this point? In other words, what kind of teamwork and manpower did it take to accomplish what you did in Florida?
So back in every 20 years, Florida has called a constitutional convention. And so there's a group of people, and they travel around the state of Florida, and they take input, and they alone can actually pass constitutional amendments, not by referendum. And so we had a member who worked with other political parties to essentially go and lobby this commission and say, hey, look, this is why we need ballot access in Florida, this is why it affects us. And that commission back in 1997 did pass that recommendation to the Florida Constitution. So it is something that's enshrined at the constitutional level, not the legislative level. So it really does protect our ballot access in a really meaningful way. Obviously, every state's going to be different in how they might approach this, whether it's a referendum on the ballot or legislation or whatever it is. But we're very fortunate in Florida to have that constitutional reform committee that meets every 20 years.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the resolution? Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes,
if I may address a comment.
sure. Then we're gonna go to a vote.
Just very quickly, the impression of the resolution is how much one person actually organizing from start to finish the process can build the entire coalition themselves, build the entire campaign themselves, and really the resolution is supposed to highlight that the people who are really ballot access warriors already are you can count them on as few, right? And the person who did all this, he recently passed away. But the point being is that it is to highlight that all this can be done, and the question of the mechanism of how to get a constitutional referendum on the ballot has been answered by all the referendums that we've seen for candidates in the last couple of years. And so it's really the same type of coalition building that would take on that process. So that's really what I wanted to say. I'm sorry, the resolution is a little long for that matter, but I wanted to put it out there that of how much effort one person can do to actually achieve these the ballot acts in our example. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bruce. Okay, I'm gonna hang up now since we're gonna move on to a vote, but you are welcome to follow along in the stream, and thank you for calling in. All right. I will say I'm aware that the People's Party in Florida has filed a lawsuit. They're in litigation right now regarding ballot access. I talk with their chair, Nick Brana, pretty regularly. They're a great group, I think, to coalition with. Very, very anti-war. We have more in common with them than I thought, actually. They're I like a lot of the Green Party people. My personal opinion is People Party is a little more based, more aggressive. So, let's go ahead and go to a vote.
Chase,
Do you mind doing a roll call vote for us?
I was gonna have Chase do that, yeah, because this requires a 2/3
Yeah.
affirmative vote, so I don't think it can be by a, so, please be nice. So, skip Angela. And if you want to use my computer or yours, put a Y, no, or A, it'll automatically add it up. Yeah. Well, he's not gonna know who's Mr. or Mrs., so if he misgenders you, you're just kind of not.
Just say the last.
Yeah, just.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
We're all
So
teachers.
Okay.
So skip Angela, and when it's two names like that, that means one's alternate, we're called first, not the second name.
Got you for Lord.
Yeah, Lord and Lady.
All right, we ready? Benner,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Duque,
Yes.
Eklund,
Yes.
Eiler,
Yes.
Elliott,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Gabbard,
Yes.
Gopian,
Yes.
Carlos,
Yes.
Nana,
Yes.
Nikayla,
Yes.
Watkins,
Yes.
Let's go ahead and put it down, but yeah.
and McCarter.
Oh, I'll vote yes, so that it would be unanimous. Nice signal to our friends. Okay,
So 14.
okay, 14-0, the resolution passes. Thank you everyone for working on that. Okay, so we're gonna stand at ease for about 5 minutes while staff gets ready to present their presentations, and then we're gonna come back and roll right into that. Thank you, guys.
Okay, but I really wanted Chase to have to do nephew Messina. Yeah, Yanuskevich, two.
That'll be the next one.
It's really not that hard of it.
That's what we're doing.
I've been saying it my whole life.
Cowan.
Oh, it's easy.
That's why they're all alternates.
That's Mark.
I see, yeah, I know my place.
All right, well, I just signed out.
Yeah, I got it.
I want to get to point
I just signed up for my account yesterday, so I was doing that as we were doing this, because I'm like, as soon as they announced that, as soon as they announced that a bunch of people had called up companies that said, screw your ad, I was like, I'm in, right? Yeah, exactly. Like, if that's how that's gonna be, you know, it's just that based on something he hasn't even done yet. This is just based off of speculation and, you know, yeah, he cleaned out, but I mean, you know, lots of people were saying that Twitter was bloated as far as. Yeah, it's not, this happens to companies all the time. It's not really a political thing, it's a business thing, so.
Same approach.
Hi.
We're back on the live stream?
Yep.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone who helped us with audio visual challenges. We love a good surprise just to keep us on our toes, so this is fantastic. We've got a really great staff report for you today. Like I mentioned yesterday, we're gonna be doing one cohesive report, and we've got several members of the team with us in town and on the phone. We're gonna be giving you updates. Let me quickly introduce myself to anyone on the live stream or in the room who doesn't know by now. I'm your interim executive director. This is my very first LNC meeting, and it's an absolute pleasure to be with you all today and to be able to participate in this organization. So for those of you who don't know, Angela approached me and asked if I could step in as your interim director. I know that it's really important that we had great talent throughout our midterm season, and that becomes easier to find people once we get through the midterm. So I'm very happy to be able to step in, and I'm on sabbatical with Microsoft and their Civic League program right now, trying to make sure that we can really implement the amazing vision of an awesome new administration.
I'm sorry, I don't know what happened there.
Oh, all good. We are rolling with the punches today. And so we've got a great presentation for you today, which I wanted to say thank you again for having me and the rest of the staff here with you to be able to give some updates. And with that, Angela's going to be doing a little clicking for me today. Would you mind jumping to the next slide? We've got more or less 4 sections of our presentation for you. First, I'm going to be speaking a little bit about what I've learned since coming on to the staff. It's been a really great opportunity to have a fresh perspective and just understand what everyone does and what we're doing well. Then we're going to talk about all the areas that we can be growing and improving our operations as a team. And then we'll be talking about political impact, a little more on that in my opportunity section. And then finally, we'll be wrapping up with next steps and Q&A for everyone. So really looking forward to hearing all of your questions at the end. We'll try to make sure we jump through our 90-minute section as quickly as possible so we can maximize that. Also, I just wanted to give a quick heads up so that you all have the information here. We're going to be trying something a little bit different. Anytime you have a question throughout today, Drew's going to be taking notes on that, and we'll not only send you those materials to those questions, but if there's anything else that is a graph or a chart or a beautiful table that has all those detailed information, we'll be able to send that to you following today's call, including the things that you've asked questions about. We also have a substantial portion of our agenda today spent on budget, and at that time we'll compile, I'm sure there'll be tons of questions that we'll send, be they private channels or public channels. So really looking forward to that, and if you want to follow along, we do an exec summary in the OneNote. So with that, Angela, if you wouldn't mind jumping to our next slide. Like I mentioned, I think like many of the people in this room, I am new to this organization. I'm actually new to the Liberty Movement as well. Been a libertarian my entire life, but got involved with the LP as a member and a volunteer just early last year. And it's been an absolute delight getting to know each of the different levels of our organizations, from how things work at the county level to the state level to how people try to work together around the nation. And then the most recent thing I've had the opportunity to observe is how this organization runs. I think everyone here has been learning how to optimize the LNC, and I've really loved hearing how you all are all working together to make sure that runs like a top. We as staff have to do the same thing. And so as I've been getting to know everyone in staff and understanding their roles, it's really clear to me that the number one thing that we can do to enact all of the great ideas that we have around the movement is to really get everyone onto the same page and be coalescing around fewer and fewer ideas and doing fewer things well. So throughout all of the updates that you'll be hearing today, not only in this portion of the presentation, but also importantly in the budget discussions, just know that we're going to have 2 big themes of everything we do as staff. And this allows us to make sure that we're organizing teams really well and really cohesively. We're making sure all of our goals align to this so we can have accountability and study if we're doing a good job or we're not doing a good job, and making sure that all the ideas that we're taking, not only from the LNC, not only from staff, but the amazing members and even growing people on the internet who feel like they want to comment on what's going on in our movement. There's a ton of ideas, but we're going to channel them into these 2 buckets. What are those exactly? Well, number one, we want to grow. I know this is the number 1 and 2 objectives of the LNC that you all passed, those 6 objectives, and we'll be talking about that more in next steps in a moment. Growth is really, really critical to our movement. There are a ton of ways that you can measure this, and the easiest ones to think about are how we have revenue and how we have members that are involved in the Libertarian Party. And so we're going to be organizing one portion of the staff and all the different stakeholders that we work with into this team of growth and operations that not only figures out how you bring those dollars and those members in the door, but how do we do that really, really efficiently. So we as an organization want to make sure that as a not-for-profit, we are not only bringing in that money, but we are saving as much of it as possible so we can actually spend that on the thing our organization is designed to do. Which brings me to our next point. That's what we're here to do, right? We're here to catalyze freedom and have political impact. So we're essentially making sure that our one portion of our staff can focus on how do we grow, how do we do it efficiently, and how can everyone else do the other 2 things that we do really well. We directly drive goals and initiatives here at National. We do a lot of that with you and the amazing committees that you're all on. And then we also support a bunch of amazing people. So of course, our members, our affiliates, candidates, voters, donors, there's a whole bunch of people that we touch, and we want to make sure that we're driving political impact that way. I know this seems like a really obvious and simple idea, but right now, we are not set up to run this way. The entire staff, the way we do things is very interdependent. So the good news there, it means we have a really collaborative team who works very well together. What we have as an opportunity though is when we're talking conversations and we're organizing ideas, we want to make sure that we are saying, okay, this is a project that's going to help us grow or get more efficient at growing, or this is a project that's going to help us move the needle and make freedom happen in America and around the world. And so really looking forward to having these 2 lenses as we all work together. And with that, let me flip to our next slide. We've got a couple of tools in our toolkit where we can do this. And you're going to be hearing about these throughout the day. And I hope this is actually very useful to us, not only today and over the next month as we're talking about budgets, because we have a lot of tools at our disposal in the Liberty movement to make change happen and improve organizations. So the number 1 asset that we have in the movement, in my opinion, is talent. I have moved down to here in Austin very recently, and in the change of going from tech to working in politics, I've gotten an opportunity to meet people who work in the other parties or in just, I should say, the ecosystems of the other 2 big parties. And a lot of times they'll say, wow, we're really excited about what you're doing. Like, this seems like there's a lot of energy in the movement. I'm really sorry that you're at a disadvantage because you're the third party. And what I say right back to them is, disadvantage? We have all the advantages in the world. Do you know how many talented people are flooding into this movement and are ready to take any project on that they want to? Those are volunteers and those are people that we can tap into that allow us to get a lot of things done that they could never do in the other 2 parties because they work like really canned industries, right? There's a corporate ladder that everyone's trying to climb. There's career trajectories people have to do. What I notice in the Liberty movement, people are so passionate and so willing to step in that they're just begging for stuff to do. And so that is really exciting. And as we talk later today, we want to make some formal investments in talent to hire people, to bring people on as contractors, to bring people on in other creative ways formally with the team, but also to engage groups of volunteers. So we'll talk about that a bit later, but talent is one of the number 1 things that we can harness, and it doesn't always have to cost something. Second, I know that we've been hearing a lot about our Razor's Edge migration yesterday and lots of other ideas of how we could improve processes, but one of the things we want to invest in that scales is tools. I won't belabor this point too much because we'll talk about it a lot later, but whether it's software or different ways that we measure things, Reed's got a lot of really great updates for that later today. We want to be investing in tools that are modern and look like what a free market business would be doing. So our team already leverages a lot of great tools and we're constantly looking to optimize those. Next, we have, we have funding. So everyone knows this one, cash is really important to get stuff done. We're gonna be talking about this. The main thing I wanna emphasize here is money is not the only way we get things done. Often just by making things more efficient or harnessing these other things, we're going to be able to resource what it is that we wanna do. And then finally, and this is probably the most important message I could share today from my opportunity to observe the organization. The main thing that we can do to improve and do a better job for you as staff is focus. So if we had a number one priority, I would say it's to prioritize things. I think everyone would agree for me that if we were just to spend a whole other week here in Austin, this group would never run out of ideas for how to grow efficiently and how to make more freedom happen in America. Our problem is not our ideas. Our problem is making those ideas happen one at a time by understanding, okay, this is the number one thing we want to tackle, and this group of people is going to go do it. And here's the time horizon they're going to get it done on. Here's how we're going to check in on it. Here's how we're not going to get in the way of this other really important idea, which can be done in parallel. Or, you know what? This idea needs to happen before this one. So we as the staff have been experimenting with bringing in processes where we stack rank priorities, and I'm really excited to work with the LNC even more broadly and how we do that with all of your committees without getting in the way of anyone, because we want to constantly harness the energy that we have. Big thanks to our chair, who we meet weekly and talk honestly daily, hourly to make sure we're doing this already. But we want to make sure we're doing this across the organization and really holding ourselves accountable to it as staff. So that's a bit of the overview of the lenses of what I've learned and how we've been thinking about what we're going to tell you. As a quick reminder from our agenda, next you're going to hear a little bit about our growth in operations. So if you don't mind clicking, thanks, Angela. And again, as a quick reminder, growth in operations is really about bringing in revenue, bringing in members, and making sure we're doing that efficiently. Let me give you a quick rundown of who you're going to hear from today. First, you're going to get an update on development from our amazing development director, Gabby Cordova. And because development and revenue go hand in hand, we're also including Todd Hagopian to come give an update on how we are approaching revenue for the budget conversations later today. You'll notice that Todd is going to let us know all about how he's taking a much more trend-driven approach to the budget this year, and the work that Gabby has done, it really feeds into what we think is coming in the future. Then we're going to hear a little bit more from myself and Matt Hudson. Matt does a lot of our amazing graphics, but he's also a really good marketing talent, and he is going to show us some ways that we will be able to grow our revenue and our marketing strategies in the future. And then we'll also hear a bit about from Robert on our data processes. So with that, I want to welcome up Gabby and give her, hand off to her to give us a report on how revenue is doing year to date and since our last LNC meeting. Thank you, Gabby. Thank you.
All right, go ahead. There we go. Okay. Hi, everyone. I want to thank our LNC, our guests for sitting around for the whole day. Thank you for being here, and those of you watching virtually. My name is Gabby Cordova, and I am your development director. So, as you can see, our year-to-date total and fund revenue have, so as far as year-to-date, it is comparable with our last midterm election year in 2018. Pledge revenue has increased, and as far as July to October revenue, as you can see, we are lower than we were at 2018 and much lower from 2021. A lot of that does have to do with our average gift. I just wanted to turn back to pledge revenue real quick. A huge reason why that has increased are because of you. And I really quick want to thank those LNC members who have offered to bring in revenue. We have real quick Dave, Martin, Miguel, Joseph, Carrie, Brian, Linnea, Robley, Karen Ann, Angela, Andrew, and Kathy. And Martin especially was called over 100 of our members to bring in renewals. So I want to thank you. And if any of you would like to make any calls, I know some of you have reached out to me the last few days. It really is helpful. And our members love hearing from the regional reps and at-large members. So thank you all, really. With that, I will pass it on to Todd.
All right. For those on the phone, Todd Hagopian, treasurer. I'm going to give a brief update on the budget tomorrow, just so you guys can think about that as the staff's doing their reports. We have come up with a $1.7 million revenue target for next year. That'll, of course, also be the expense target. So $1.7 million is what to keep in mind. We did that based on a comprehensive review of the last 4 years of non-convention revenue per member. So basically taking away convention revenue and looking at how much each member averages paying. We found that average goes in a pretty tight range. It was between $93 and $110-ish per member per year. So we chose $100, which is right in the middle of the range. The reason I say that is because this is not what I would call a conservative budget. This is what I would call probably an accurate budget, unless we were to over-deliver. So I don't want people to have in their mind that we can go up from this number. In the past LNCs, we have gotten in trouble picking an expense line and then raising revenue to meet that. That is what I want to avoid in the discussion later. This number is 13% higher than the previous year in the cycle, 2019, and it is actually higher than the non-convention revenue for 2022. So it is an increase. So know that this is not conservative. We're going up. Revenue and expenses will not be straight lines this year. There will be logic applied to them. The reason I'm bringing that up is because we will probably backload expenses. So as you start to say that you want something funded, the second question is going to be when. And the idea there is if you need 50,000, but you don't need it till Q4, I need to know so we can move it till Q4. That way, if that number starts trending to 1.6, we can cut it. And if that number starts trending to 1.8, I know which things we did put in the budget that might be next. Okay. We approved the process. This is an additional step in the budget process. Typically, the treasurer and the executive director would come up with the budget. We would give it to the executive committee, and then they would present it eventually to the staff or to the LNC. You guys are coming in early with the staff so that we can do a little bit more, and I can see consensus in the room prior to coming up with that draft budget. Do I have a draft budget right now? Yes. You guys don't get to see it. I'm going to take a look at the consensus, and I'm going to adjust it based on what I think will pass and what I think will accomplish the goals that we all decide coming out of today. We have worked with the auditor to change the categories that we will be using. Thank you, Lainey, and thank you, Robert. We worked with the auditor to basically align with what Lainey has already talked about. So there will be administrative expenses, there will be salaries, and there will be professional services. Those are very hard to change, difficult to change. The things that we will be able to change are the growth and the political. Growth will probably be fundraising costs. Political will be things like core services and ballot access. So basically, candidate support and affiliate support will go in core services and giving us a little bit more flexibility inside the organization to make changes. The auditor is 100% on board and actually said that this will be better. This is actually more adhering to GAAP than previously. Those categories could change depending on the discussions today, but that's essentially what we're doing. The election is going to have significant impacts on the ballot access discussion, which is the primary reason that we're not showing a draft budget today. Because I do not want people to get their hopes up. If that changes by 300,000, that will change. The one thing I do want to touch on is the focus that Lainey mentioned. This is going to be key. Everybody in here wants to focus on small, local elections. Everyone wants to focus on the presidential election. Everyone wants 50 state ballot access. Everybody wants to grow in fundraising. We can only focus on certain things at certain times, especially with the $1.7 million budget. So we have to decide what we want to focus on and what year we want to focus on that. And so I want you to keep that in mind. If we don't do something this year, it does not mean we don't do it next year. Okay. But we have to decide what we want to be in 2023. And at 1.7 million, it's not going to be everything. So keep it in mind. Just know that if your request can wait till Q1 2024, then hold that back because there's going to be more than enough requests for 2023. All right. Any questions before I hand it off to the staff? Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a quick one. So you mentioned an assumption of a 13% revenue growth. Is that primarily driven by the membership recruitment, retention, and recapture, or is there more to it than that?
Yeah. So in actuality, what we've done is used historicals. So if the plan that Laney is coming up with does better than historical, which is what we're hoping, we can always amend the budget. We are not gonna put in quarterly or whatever reviews. It is, once we see that the budget is over delivering, I will come back to you and say, it appears that we're gonna have $200,000 more. What do we wanna do? And we will amend. But I have not built in operational growth above and beyond historicals, because that is risky.
I think that's wise. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, did your conversations with the auditor result in a new chart of accounts? or
Not just yet, but essentially I gave him what I wanted the chart of accounts to be, and he said those would be fine.
Okay.
But we are gonna wait until after this, and make sure that that's what we wanna go with.
Okay,
So Robert's gonna help us with that. Essentially, the major GLs are gonna change, the minor GLs might not. Okay. But,
Yeah, I just-
the largest categories will be minimized, and it'll make it much easier. The one big issue we've had in the audit in the past is every little dollar being assigned to those major GLs. This will make that problem much easier to deal with.
Right, okay, yeah, just obviously I want to make sure that the
Yeah.
auditor does sign off on
Yeah,
whatever
before we
final
do
chart
it,
of
I'll
accounts.
loop you in, but he was pretty clear that this is going to be an improvement, not a detriment.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Thanks, Steph.
Okay, I'm going to speak briefly about what we're seeing on the bottom of the screen. Thank you, Martin, for the amazing tee up there. And first of all, thank you so much to Todd. When we were both onboarding, we worked extensively with our former executive director and Robert to understand how the process typically works. And we noticed that there is an opportunity to collaborate much earlier in the process. So Todd and I are meeting weekly. We're working closely with Angela to make sure that we can get as much analysis and partnership into that draft budget Todd is talking about ahead of today's meeting as possible. And I know we're doing things a little bit differently this year, but I hope what you find after today is everyone here will have an opportunity to talk about all their priorities, and then we'll be able to resource that and then provide you with a budget, purely budget conversation in December. So really excited about that, and Todd's done a lot of amazing work to innovate on the budget. Like he mentioned, one of the things that we're doing this year is we're going to start with historical, but we don't just want to do what we've always done. We literally want to grow it. That's the objective, is to hit record growth. And so we are going to be at the, to Todd's credit for identifying this in the past, and I believe a former LNC used something close to this. We're using a really simple model of the 3 R's of recruit, retain, and recapture. Because we've got so much content to do today, we're not giving you lots of charts and graphs on our membership and our financials from September and October. Those are all available to you on the list, and we'll be getting the final October financials out very soon. What we do want you to know is that we are going to be looking at all 3 of these tactics in order to grow. Essentially, we have a little bit of arithmetic when we look at growth. We want to be bringing in new people. We want to be regaining old people, and we want to be keeping the people that we have as easily as possible. And when you look at that, that's the way that the numbers start to stack up. Earlier today, Gabby spoke to you about pledge revenue growth and how that has grown not only from 4 years ago, the comparable year that we want to look at, but also last year. And that's a little bit of a credit to not only the current staff, but also the former staff. All the work that they've done to build on monthly recurring revenue and annual recurring revenue, that's one more person we don't have to call or text or email to get them to continue to donate. So kudos to the past staff and the current staff to building that number. We want to double, triple, quadruple down on that. And so in a little bit, I'm going to bring up a map who's going to let you know some of the ways we're going to do that. The other quick thing I want to comment on with this model, though, is we want to make it simple for us to all understand how it's going. So I really appreciate all the thorough reports that we provide to you. We're going to be taking a look at that to make sure they're a little bit easier to read, a little more self-evident, and not only for the LNC, who more or less is our board of directors and holds us accountable, but we want the members to know too, right? We want everyone to be able to get excited and look at a chart and say, we are growing, like this is awesome. So that is the objective for having this model. It's an easy way to have conversations, or if one of you has an idea, you can easily slot it into one of these categories so that we know this is something that's going to help us grow. And with that, I want to get you excited about a couple of ways that we can do that within just people we already have information for. So people who are already in our door. This is his first LNC meeting, and like I mentioned, we have Matthew Hudson on staff. He does an amazing work for us on social media and with graphics on web. He's going to be talking a bit about how we can adapt these concepts into a couple of examples. And so with that, let's give him a big round of applause for his first LNC meeting.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me down. As Laney mentioned, I am Matt Hudson. I am happy to be in Texas, far from Massachusetts. Part of the things that Laney was talking about are the three R's: recruit, retain, recapture. And there's lots of ways that we can accomplish growth as an organization. And the theme that you're going to hear from us throughout the day probably is all around optimization of current assets. Excuse me. I tried to drown myself in a cup of water a few minutes ago. I haven't recovered fully yet, but in terms of recruiting new membership, the number one thing we need to do is improve our user experience on our website and reduce the friction that people get when they land on the site. Currently, we have a little bit of disorganization going on when people land on the site, and they may get to the membership checkout, they may not. We need to use optimized funnels. We need to use optimized campaigns that will drive people to focused landing pages based on the campaign that they're looking at. Help keep them engaged throughout the process. So, it's a new method really in the last couple of years of creating a journey on your website, right? So, if somebody's on social media reading about a certain campaign and they click through the website, you don't want to land on a page with 10 other processes. There are 10 other, sorry, with 10 other different ideas. So focus campaigns with landing pages that will help keep that person engaged in the topic they care about, to create a journey to them becoming a member as they land on the website. Another thing we should look at doing is streamlining membership tiers, reducing the options, and redeveloping that page that allows a side-by-side comparison of those tiers so that people can know what they're getting before they're essentially buying into something. As we get to the retention bucket, part of growing is retaining what you already have, right? So we need to have focus campaigns that will help us convert our current members who are not in that recurring status to a recurring status. This will help reduce our dependencies, create efficiencies by freeing up hours that staff spends on this right now. As Laney mentioned previously, there's been a lot of focus on driving recurring status. But one thing that isn't currently in place is people still have the option to go on the site and become a single-time member, right? We really want to remove that option, get everybody signing up into the recurring status, and give them a way to opt out of that eventually. This does a couple of things. One, the churn at the end of the year for our membership is largely because people either forget or don't have the time, or just don't go back and do it. It also takes up a ton of staff time, sending out emails, sending out text messages, sending out making phone calls, trying to get these people to really do. So we can get a lot of our time back and get a lot more efficient in that process. And to do that, we need to create a situation where comms and development is working together to get campaigns out on social media and other channels that will, like I said, is on landing pages that are relevant, and help convert these people into a recurring status. And in terms of recapturing members lost, it's basically a rinse and repeat for us. A lot of these efficiencies that we're creating are going to matter to the recapture bucket as well. And basically, the consistent messaging and the improvements that we have already going into place are going to help us get a lot of the long lost membership back. So that is it for me.
Sounds great.
Perfect.
Cool.
Yeah.
I hope that what everyone is excited about there is, I know things like removing the one-time donation option on a website are really sexy stuff, you know? But really what gets me the most excited, although I get excited about the more sexy stuff. The thing that I'm most excited about, what Matt and frankly everybody on the team are bringing with these ideas, is that they're all low-hanging fruit, right? Like, there's so much growth happening in the broader movement of people that we can tap into. We want to make sure you know that there's probably 150 things about our website, our social media channels, our email that we know we can just adapt to modern practices and reduce a lot of the friction and improve a lot of the retention. We're actually going to be getting together all of staff tomorrow to the degree to which we can with elections happening and focusing all on these kinds of ideas to figure out how we can grow. Pretty much everything on our beginning to-do list is simple stuff. And that's not even the exciting things we can be doing with big marketing in order to bring even more people into the movement, wake people up, bring people into the party. And Dustin, I see you had a question.
Yeah, you talked about one-time donor button. You just mean, so like in Ohio, what we do is you go to donate, it's automatically an annual unless you click the box that says, I think this is one time. Is that what you're talking about essentially?
Yeah, I know it sounds just as simple, but right now on our website, I believe the default experience is you go to the website, it says how much would you like to donate, and then if you don't change anything, you'll just donate the one time. It makes a lot of sense to encourage people. Yeah, we want to make it easy for people to donate to us regularly, right? So that's the objective, and there's a whole slew of things just like that that are very, very simple. For example, automating text messages to people, right? That's something that we've been able to do there. So it really is that simple. I know we're also working closely with Todd on what they've been doing in Oklahoma that's been really successful. I know Indiana has a bunch of great ideas that they've been using Civi to leverage. And so, if you have any of those ideas, feel free to shoot them our way because we're trying to just stack and go them. Does that answer your question? Great. Okay. Well, with that, go ahead.
Very quick question. What metrics do you have to, in terms of the one-time donation versus make this an annual donation, in terms of how much that scares people off because they're fear of committing to an annual donation? What research do you guys have into that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and that's one that Drew is writing down to see if we can get you a better answer than something we can do on the fly. What I want to answer this with is actually the holistic approach. We're going to take things that can actually do that. Let me share an example of a conversation Todd and I have been having. I know in Oklahoma, they've been experimenting with, should we even have annual recurring memberships? What if we only had monthly? I'll come to you in a second, Todd. That's a pretty big decision to remove the opportunity for someone to donate annually. We don't want to rush into any decisions that are going to massively impact how we collect donations and how we let members get involved and give us signals. So what we're doing in general as a team is every single Friday we review how are we doing this past week, and we're experimenting with stuff in order to make sure that we're not rocking the boat too much on our financials. And so we are looking to a lot of modern best practices, especially in the startup world where they have to do this with digital tools. And we will be looking at that. But this is, I'd say, a well appreciated thing in the modern business community because it gives you really predictable revenue. Todd, did you want to add?
Yeah, the only thing I'll say, for anybody who might be about to ask a bylaws question, we know that there's bylaws implications and that button will not be going away. I will say in Oklahoma until, and if anything changes, I will say in Oklahoma, we have now officially gone to a subscription-only model. You are not allowed to become a member with a one-time donation. Our average donation monthly is $16 per member, whereas our single donation is a $24 minimum. The minimum monthly is $3, and it is going to $5 by the end of the year. So we'll effectively have doubled our minimum donation to become a member, and we'll have moved everybody to monthly We lose almost nobody in that case. And the ones that bring that average up to $16 are the ones that are doing $25, $50, $100 a month, who were not giving $600 donations in the past, but are now doing $50 a month because we've been pushing it. We have approximately 93% of our donations at this moment are coming in through monthly donors. So the idea is to get to that point before you ever take one of these massive steps, but it was a consistent 18-month effort to get there, and we just pulled the trigger.
Yeah, and by the way, thank you for giving us the opportunity to clarify. We're not trying to remove the ability for people to do stuff. We want to be able to allow everyone to engage with us, not only within our bylaws, but any way they want, frankly. All we're trying to do is make it easier on people who already want to give us recurring donations to make that a default experience. So, and many of other micro improvements there. And then I think Karen Ann. Yeah.
Only because I know that I love libertarians. I know that the moment that came out that the threads have already been started about this is a bylaws thing. Let's super be careful, but also I like to bring some historical perspectives. The last time, and it could be a totally different situation, that the LNC really played around with things like this was an utter disaster. So before we look at that, I'm not saying not to try it again, let's try to find out why. They went to, I know it's a little bit different, but they went to a zero dues thing and like lost all of them, not all of them, I'm being, I'm like a libertarian, very hyperbolic, but it wasn't a good thing that happened. So I would urge extreme caution in this movement because a lot of the older members are very understandably gun shy. But I think I might have either misunderstood something before, like zoned out, or maybe you were joking and I just didn't get it. Because it said something about removing the one-time option on it.
I misspoke, and thank you for Mr. Google for clarifying to me.
I saw your
So
face.
that's a good way to No. What I mean is, essentially, we want to make it easy for people to donate monthly or annually. It's actually a convenience to a lot of members to be able to do this, so they don't have to like call us or email us and say, hey, I want to keep donating to you. So that's really what we're talking about, is making it easier to donate regularly, which is good for the organization.
And I had one other question.
My mistake to the threads.
Yeah, I just really wanted, I didn't want Zuckerberg to go, all of a sudden, what happened? All the libertarians lost their minds. Is there any way to get this? There's one particular screen I'm very interested in having a copy of, so I didn't know if that was, it can be sent to the LNC.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me repeat. So we'll make sure that any of the relevant content is available to you. You have an executive summary so you can follow along. We have many more pages of thorough content that we want to provide to you, and we also want to add your questions.
I wanted specifically that one that had the figures,
yes.
Because I immediately, when we were talking about it, somebody had asked me, I'm like, that would be a great graphic to share on social media.
Yes, so we will be able to do that, and we'll make sure that that is included in the packet. We have even more information that Gabby has pulled into her very thorough report. That's even the pretty version of the figures, so we'll make sure that.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for cancel at any time, so I would have the first page when you say you're gonna be a monthly donor, cancel at any time, right up top. In Georgia, what they do is, we actually get an email on every monthly payment that says you can modify your subscription at this link, right? So it's every month we are told we can delete it or cancel it. And, I'm very cautious personally, so I always like to make sure it's canceled at any time, and almost always, it's never an exception to that. But that, I'm paranoid, and other people are paranoid too.
It's a great point, and here's where I'm going to give another nod to Matt. What we want to be doing is make sure we're honing what's called user experience or UX. There are a lot of ways to do this well. Lifecycle marketing is a field unto itself to be able to optimize. So think of it this way: how does Netflix do a really good job at this? How does the Republican Party do a really good job at this? How does the Democrat Party do a good job at this? How do they do a bad job at this? These are all kinds of places we want to look to for inspiration, and we want to make sure that people know, we can make it easy on them to, like I said, to contribute. That's really the main objective, and we don't want to get in our own way of directing people to donate less frequently, which basically will help with growth. And I know we've got a lot of questions about this. I want to stay on time. Maybe we can take one more and then we'll jump.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure maybe we confirm for the edification of the body that it sounds to me like, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're going to make the recurring subscription service, the default,
Mhm.
rather than making the single, which I happen to totally endorse.
Yeah,
That make that, there always has to be an avenue for someone to donate one time, but
Exactly.
the default should be, in my opinion, the default should be recurring, because that is really the way to raise money, in my opinion.
Let me give a great example about how this benefits users. I know many of the people here and many of the people listening, got really engaged last year about participating in this year's convention. I made sure that I understood when the deadlines were to be eligible to be a delegate. I signed up, and I believe I did it accidentally as a one-time thing. If I wanted to remain a member, I'm now a lifetime member. That's great so I have that there. But let's say I had stayed in that one-time membership, it would be on me to figure out how I redo that, and then how do I do it on the right time? Do I do it 1 week before I did it last year? Do I do it 1 day after? What does that mean for my membership? Like, that causes anxiety, and it's a chore. We don't want to do that for people. So that's really what we're going here, and that also benefits growth for all of us. And Todd, maybe
Sorry,
last
just last question, yes, so we'd like to make that auto recurring unless they flip it off, right?
Mhm.
But even more importantly, people are more likely to call up, complain, and cancel after getting nailed with a $25 charge than they are with a $5 a month charge. So one of the other things we will be pushing is trying to get people onto the monthly subscription. It evens out our revenue better, and we have much less attrition. So
Yeah.
that is gonna be a focus. It just won't be the only way that you can become.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, and with that, I'll close this portion, and we have another Q&A at the end. Please feel free to send questions there or any other time in the future. I think what we can all notice here is that there's a lot of enthusiasm to optimize things, right? So we want to make sure we're not, we're learning from the past. And to address another great point by Karen Ann, we have an amazing asset on the team, which is Robert, who's been with the Libertarian Party for years and years. He's seen a lot of these changes and how they perform well, how they haven't performed well. So we have a very specific wealth of knowledge in the staff, but we also have the best practices of all kinds of other organizations that we will rely on. We don't want to funk with the or mess with the levels too much that we're doing anything drastic. It's really about, hey, what's the low hanging fruit we can do to make everybody's experience easier? And I hope what you're gleaning from this is that we want to operate like a business and offer a great experience to members as if they're our customers. So with that, it's a great opportunity to transition over to another staff member. We told you a little bit about in the growth and operations section, how we're really doing 3 things. We want to optimize all of our funnels. We want to make sure we're creating a true membership. We want to give people concrete projects that they can actually donate to that tap into the passions that they have for the freedom movement. And we've been doing a lot of that this weekend, and we'll keep doing that. What Drew's about to talk about, this is also Drew's very first LNC meeting that he's visiting in person. Drew's going to talk to you about how we, again, don't want to rush into things or put things in from on high from staff. We're actually going to survey members, and we're going to understand what they're interested in so that we can offer a more true membership that offers people value. So with that, let me kick it off to Drew, and then Gabby, who will be giving us a bit of a heads up on how we offer a better membership experience versus just something you donate to once a month. Go ahead, Drew.
All right, how's it going, everybody? My name is Andrew Rhea. I specifically serve as the appeals manager on our national staff, and so I'm in the development department with Gabby, and I'm mainly focused on, how do we communicate to our members, to our donors, who are essentially the lifeblood of the organization. And so I really want to talk right now about, how do we drill down to our membership and really understand them so that we can provide them basically the best return on investment, right? There are a bunch of people across this country that already give to us, have given to us for years, but as Lainey has been mentioning, there are so many people who are flocking to this party and this movement right now, and they want to get involved, they want to help out, but they also have a vision. Everybody that comes into an organization has their vision for that organization, and so we really want to focus on making sure that we're listening to them, that we're taking their input, and that we're collaboratively moving forward together as one cohesive unit. And so I'm really looking forward to getting a lot of that feedback from our membership survey. We also are going to have a state leadership survey and a candidate survey. And, we as a team are going to take that, look at that, and really cater our messaging, cater our strategy to the, to the input of the organization. It's something I'm really passionate about and excited about. In addition to my development and fundraising work, I've also taken on some responsibilities with membership. And so not only, renewal messages, the emails, the notifications that our wonderful folks get when it's almost time for them to renew with the party. But also, just I'm in the info inbox as well. I'm sure some of you have heard about the email info inbox. And so I get to interface with people on that end. I also am now running our weekly member welcome hangouts for new members, which to me is like the best thing because I get to see people as they come in and talk to them. What brought you here? Everybody has their libertarian journey, their libertarian story. And so these are phenomenal ways that we can not only, build relationships with our new members, but also find out what brought them here. And, if it worked on them, how can we get this out to the masses? How can we get people to see these things and get excited about these things, if they've never heard of the party or they've never interacted with a libertarian before. I do real quick want to give a shout out to our phenomenal communications team as well. I've been in development since June of 2021. And one of the really exciting parts of what we're doing right now as a staff is development has taken an increased relationship with communications, which has been phenomenal to get to know Connor, Dave, Carrie, who do phenomenal work. And I really can't thank them enough for all of the help that they provide staff with, and the rest of you as well. It's important. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Gabby. She's going to give you a lot more details about what we're moving forward to. I know this is a very exciting time, midterm elections, obviously this incredible meeting that we're having right now. So I really do think that moving forward, there's a lot to get excited about. And I just want to thank you all so much for having me and listening to my bullshit. So I'll turn it over to Gabby.
Okay, so we talked about, we're talking about monthly memberships. So a big part of a monthly membership is we have people giving one time at the lowest level, minimum, 25. They hear someone they like on a podcast and they go, I really love you guys, or they're so sick and tired of the duopoly. So they become members, but they become members at a very low level. We can turn them into monthly donors, then it's easier to retain them. So offering true membership, we talked about surveys. We're also looking at new merchandise. Now, these aren't reasons why people give, but they are incentives. People give because there is something that they are passionate about, whether it's a project or political impact that we're making. So this past weekend, we've been pushing issue-based messaging. So people can vote with their dollars, as we're calling it, so they can donate to the issue that they want us to be messaging about. Something else, we have LP News, so our members can know what's going on. It'll be a year in review. And like I mentioned, really making sure that when someone first joins, whether it's a one-time or a monthly, making sure they are getting those targeted appeals that they want to hear what we're doing and that they can donate towards. Thank you.
And with that, I'm going to do a facilitation for two other staff members who are on the phone and going to be joining us in. Robert, how are we looking on AV to have Kara and Reed chat with us?
They should be right there.
Kara, can you hear us?
I can.
All right, let me give a quick intro to both of the two of you, and then we'll let you take it away. So as everyone knows, Kara has been leading our candidate support. She's working day in, day out with candidates around the country to make sure that they're not only prepared to run and excited about running, but that we are helping them as much as we can before, during, and after the election. So like Gabby mentioned, we don't just want to offer membership to grow our membership in this neutral, sterile way. We want to be giving people things that they're excited about. And so two examples of that you're about to hear about are number one from Kara, who's going to go over candidate updates. And then second, from our communications director, who not only has been doing a lot to get the word out, to grow our channels, but to get people really excited and gives them something that they're hopeful about, and it's really been doing a lot of good in the pool space. And so with that, Kara, I'll advance the slides for you, but wanted to let you talk first about our current position with candidates, and then about the activities that we're doing to support them. So I will turn it over to you.
Certainly. Thank you very much. So the numbers that you're probably most interested in is how many candidates are we running and how does that compare? So this year we're looking at about 668 candidates. We usually find out about a couple more candidates after the election, and that also comes as a surprise to their state affiliates. Usually a pleasant surprise. So out of that, we have 60 some at the muni level, we have 100 some at county, almost 300 at the state legislature. Now you can see the numbers on there, but what's important about this is that we have a nice mix of these, and different candidates run at different levels for different reasons. We have our ballot access races, we have our municipal races and our county races, which are the ones that we can be more competitive in. But our other races are extremely valuable. So we need our candidates to run for state legislature. We need them to run statewide. We need them to run federal. And the reason why we need this is to support our political operation. We need the data that we're going to get from that at the precinct level so we can see where we are strong in each state, in each county, in each city. And that helps us decide, okay, there's a pocket of strong support here, we need to run municipal candidates. Okay, there's a pocket of support here, that's where we're going to focus our ballot access petitioning efforts for our presidential candidate in 2024. We get a ton of valuable information from that. So a lot of appreciation to all of our candidates for running to win, running to message, and also running to get us that incredibly invaluable data that we need to be prepped for the 2024 election. To put this into context, in 2018, we had 842 candidates running. We had 57 elected. So 38 of those were in local races, 19 were in county races. In 2020, we had fewer candidates run. We had just about 458 right in there. We had 32 wins, one state legislature win, which was very exciting, 3 county and 28 local. So we're looking to stay within that trend line. I don't see us deviating too much from that trend line on our win rate. So that's the really exciting part about the election. We are wrapping up right now. I'm hopefully finishing some of my last trainings with campaigns on how to marshal their volunteers at polls. Thankfully finished up all of the trainings I was doing to help campaigns get their texting, their get out the vote texting done. And I would like to thank those campaigns for being very patient and understanding that we had a lot of people trying to get in for some of these trainings. And so some of them were taking place at midnight, some were taking place at 5 a.m. So you have a lot of hardworking candidates and campaigns up there. We're wrapping up and getting ready to do our results. Thank you to everyone on the LNC and our volunteers who have picked their 20 candidates that they're going to follow, and on election night, right away when polls close, they're going to look for those election results and record them in the spreadsheet. And I do ask for the same process as possible. One of the reasons is we are having the live stream coverage of the election, and they're going to be using that information to be able to record during the live stream. So we really do not want to leave our chair, our executive director kind of hanging in the breeze on that. We all need to be their support system so that we have a really good live stream product that goes out, and our activists watching across the country can be excited about our wins. And then we have a team that is going to be recording those results in the CRM. That is a much lengthier process, so be patient with us. we'll try to record the wins first because we know we like those to show up on the website. But we will get that information in there. And then we have the follow-up calls, which thank you again, LNC, for agreeing to help with the thank you calls to our candidates. We try to do that within 24 to 48 hours after the election. I am finishing the last 17 thank you cards for our candidates. I like to handwrite them a thank you card because if they can put in that effort to run, I can put in the effort to thank them properly for that. So that's some of the activities that we're wrapping up on the election. I do an end of year report. I will try to get an election report done within a couple of weeks so that you have that. But we're looking like we're going to have a really good election and that we have this organized well. Let's see, looking ahead, we're looking at, different activities that we have because we have the cycle that we're in. We are already in the 2023 and 2024 election cycle. I've been in that cycle for several months now. We're already recruiting candidates, getting them pulled in, all of that kind of stuff, looking at how we train them and their campaign teams, and looking at how we serve them, right? A mention was made of the candidate survey that's going to be coming out. This will be a change from what we've done previously. So for those of you who are expecting a trending report from me on the candidate survey, we're going to close that out because we're doing a different type of survey and it's coming after the election. We won't have that trend analysis, but we will be doing a candidate survey. It's just going to be done a little differently. So, just be aware of that for those of you who have been on the LNC previously and are expecting it in a specific format. To let you know how I fit in on growth as well, because it's not just in the campaign area. I, 3 years ago, put processes in place so that anytime someone contacts me, they want to run for office, I check to see if they are a member. If they are not a member, I ask them to become a member because you need to be a member. And I bring in about 30 to 60 new memberships every year. And that was a fairly simple process change, but it's indicative of how small changes can have a good result on that. In my report, it has, the other training and that kind of stuff that you can look through, but, I'll stand for questions on this.
And I think possibly the best thing to do for time is to put all those questions towards the end. But maybe we can go quickly to, or do you already have, go ahead.
Yeah, just very briefly. Kara Martunievich, first, thank you so much for all your hard work. I may have missed it during your presentation. What's our starting point in terms of our current number of public office holders, if you've got a rough number?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear his question.
I'll repeat that. And again, if we don't have that, this is always something we can follow up there the weeks to come or today. Kara, the question was, do we have a starting point of current elected officials? I know that can also be a little bit difficult to have a comprehensive number. Do we have any starting points now?
Okay, so you're wondering how many current libertarians are elected as of today, right?
Or appointed, yes, just public office holders, that's the only question.
Oh, sure. So right now we have about 320 elected. That number is in a slight flux because we are having a little bit of a flux with some affiliates and our electeds. We do an audit though each year. We do it after the election and then we go through and we make sure, do we have everyone correct? Are they still a member of the party or are they, registered as a libertarian? But right around 320 currently.
Thank you.
And again, if there's any other questions, welcome those at the very end, just so we can make sure we get through this on time. One thing I really want to commend Kara on is that, as you know, it's not just about getting candidates prepared. It's really about all of the operations that go on behind the scenes. So I'll give one more shameless plug to everybody in the group. If you've not already, please consider volunteering to help us on election night. A lot of LNC members have already done so, but that, like Kara, has been great to remind me throughout this onboarding process. It's really, really fun when people around the country can see the results ASAP, and we are putting together the best live stream we can for you to be able to celebrate that. And with that, I want to hand it off to another member of our team who has been through the ringer on the flights, planes, trains, and hurricanes. He tried to take over to get here, but this would be his first meeting with us as an LNC. As many of you know, we've brought in a new communications director, Reed Cooley. I'm going to make a brief comment here to tee Reed off, and then he'll be able to tell you, along with any other members of our social media team who formed a special committee here, the reason why we are organizing communications into this portion of the update is because marketing is one of the best tools we have as a minor force here in the country to be able to do high ROI political impact. So I know everyone here understands why ballot access is important to moving the needle on freedom. Everyone here understands why candidates are really important. It's just as important that we are thinking really creatively and strategically to improve our channels and our marketing. I know we're constantly doing amazing wins and looking to get better, but that's why we want to, we're really lucky to have Reed with us who can think creatively and do that. So he's going to walk us through some updates there, and Angela and I will do our best to make sure the numbers match what Reed is saying while he's rolling with the punches on the phone. And with that, would you mind looking to our slide on the news coverage? And Reed, feel free to take it away.
All right, thank you, Lainey. So first off, everybody, I am so sorry that I could not be there with all of you this weekend. I wanted to more than anything, but evidently the weather had other plans. Have a nice weekend with all of you in Austin, Texas. I've gotten a long scenic view of two very dreary looking airports that I have to get but I am thrilled and honored to be your communications director. Thanks to the amazing work of all the hands on our communications team, including our volunteers, we've already started to see some results which excite me, and I can tell you these results are only going to get better. But once again, none of this great work could happen without all of our volunteers. Being a volunteer on this team can feel every bit as demanding and time-consuming as a full-time job. I, as the communications director, am responsible for ensuring that all the trainings are running on time, but it's really the volunteers that roll up their sleeves and do much of this work directly every day. I want to start by sharing some top-line results of success. I believe the following metrics might have already been shared with many of you, but in August, we doubled the amount of earned media that the party was gaining. That's a 640 earned media hits in July compared to 1,250 in August. Then in October, we earned 2,169 earned media hits, double the amount we earned in August, which was double the amount we earned in July, meaning that in 3 months, we've actually quadrupled the amount of TV, radio, print, and online coverage the Libertarian Party is earning. I just want to say one more time that this is just the beginning.
And Reed, we're going to hold for applause on that because that's incredible. So yes, please thank you. Congratulations. And social media team.
You guys can't see it, but I'm taking a bow right now.
Yeah.
So to get some more insight into what this success really looks like and some of the day-to-day work that's causing it to happen, I'd like to provide a few brief anecdotes. So whenever most Americans tune into the media, whether it's watching a couple of talking heads bicker at each other on TV, or we find some written article with a headline that captures our interest, the only two political perspectives that we find are typically those of the Republicans and the Democrats, right? Usually some White House official, some ranking congressman, or some party spokesperson for the new office. Part of what we've introduced to the communications team is designed to change exactly that. With the goal of ensuring that when Americans tune into the news or read that article, maybe over their morning coffee before going to work, there's a substantially higher likelihood that what they're finding in the press includes our party's vision for America. To do that, we've actually had to bring an understanding about how the media works to the table, and we have to start communicating with reporters in a timely fashion. Even deeper than that, this really requires strategically building relationships with the media over time. This is why we've introduced a procedure for getting Angela, obviously our party's main spokesperson, included in the media. Because because this consists largely of building relationships with the media, we simply call this our media relations programs. Now, for the media relations program to work, we have to remain on top of what's called the news cycle, aware of what larger audiences of Americans might be thinking about in that given time when it comes to politics. And we have to identify areas inside those news cycles for the party to comment on those events that people care about, when they care about them. So from there, I coordinate with our chair, Angela, to draft a statement encapsulating the party's position on that current event. And then within a matter of minutes, we can distribute it to hundreds of targeted media contacts, the process I'll elaborate on in just a second. So because of our party's relationship with a media monitoring service called Meltwater, Linky and I were able to negotiate basically a new series of capabilities and really new contracts with this company that is allowing us to sort out media contacts, that is to say reporters, TV hookers, radio show hosts, whatever kind of media professional we need to get in touch with at that time, according to factors like what they're currently reporting on, where they're geographically located. What we can do once we've built the targeted list according to that specific story on a particular strategy for that particular media relations outreach. Sorry about that. What we can do is we can get that statement out in a matter of minutes through Meltwater. One of the great examples of this media relations program achieving success happened during the week of October the 17th. There was a current event that week. So House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy said that America should not be issuing blank checks to Ukraine. Said that publicly. Suddenly, every mainstream TV network and every major newspaper in America was debating over whether America should be sending foreign aid to Ukraine. And if so, how much? Once I took note of this, I contacted Angela and said, look, this is an opportunity. We have got to get the Libertarian Party's position on Ukraine out there to the public, and this is a chance to do it. So we got the Libertarian Party's position on Ukraine because of that, included in Newsweek magazine, the Associated Press, and the Washington Times. We also got Angela on 2 radio shows to discuss this issue. One radio show in North Carolina and the other in North Dakota. So given that the combined circulation of Newsweek, the Associated Press, and the Washington Times is over 100 million combined, it's perfectly within reason to believe that 3 million Americans might have seen Angela McCardle talking about the need to end the war and call for an aid to Ukraine, instead of just pro-war, neocon, or neoliberal points, arguing for the exact opposite. When we talk about some of the great examples of what communications has been able to achieve since I got here a few months ago, they don't end there. So one of the things that people have wanted to see since before I came on board, and really since before I came on board, has been good video content. We started to build the demand for premium quality video by bringing in our graphic designer, Matt Hudson, a bit closer into the communications fold. In doing so, we've created some amazing videos sharing with our audiences what the libertarian positions are on issues like the Patriot Act, the Department of Education, inflation, and war. And on September 1st, we published a terrific video promoting 6 of some of our greatest candidates. That said, in a few months that I've been on this team, some more challenges have become apparent. The biggest one, in my opinion, is that some areas of our platform are a lot more difficult to message than others. Yemen is probably a great example. It's probably the greatest example there is. So inflation has been the top issue on Americans' minds since March of this year. It's simply easier to meet people where they're at on inflation, and perhaps even Ukraine, than it is with Yemen. The vast majority of Americans are unaware of the genocide in Yemen, but given that this party is mission-bound, talk about Yemen, to get it out there to the American public and talk about what an absolute tragedy it is, that should not stop us from actively making the case for why it deserves to be paid attention to, and why action is desperately needed on it. So learning how to message on certain issues like Yemen, which, as bad as it sounds, is never going to be at the top of people's minds in this country, learning how to message on those kinds of issues in order to reach the maximum number of Americans possible is a challenge that in the future is going to require some experimentation, some A/B testing, and some consistent reflection moving forward. In conclusion here, I want to emphasize how excited and optimistic I am for the future of communications with this party. Last week made 3 months that I've been here, and for even less time, we've had Laney. But I know that we will soon have some incredibly exciting times ahead for communications. That said, I suppose I'll take things back to Laney.
Thank you so much, Reed. And again, I'll just remind everyone and welcome you to ask questions in just a moment when we go to Q&A. Two other things I want to comment on here. Number one, Angela and I have cycled through a couple of charts. I know it's probably difficult to see in the room. Everyone should know that by far our communications report is the most detailed and thorough. It has lots and lots of math. So I look forward to sharing that with you so you can read through at your leisure. What's just like we had mentioned earlier in the recruit, retain, recapture model of how we want to simplify things and really find the right metrics to look at. That's really important to Reed and I as we are trying to give you all updates on our messaging success. So there's been a lot of amazing things. I know everyone here can get excited about that word quadruple. That's easy enough for today, but there's lots of nuances of how we want to make sure we are hitting the right message and honing it over time. And that's one of the biggest projects we're going to be working on in the next quarter. With that, I want to close off with some more comments with political impact. We'll talk a little bit about next steps and then go into Q&A. Let me quickly advance the slide here. What you've heard today now are 3 examples of how we are trying to drive political impact. We want to understand our members, we want to understand our affiliate leaders, we want to understand our candidates and make sure that we are providing them the best resources and experience, that they feel like they're a true member and participant of the party. We are obviously doing a lot of amazing good things with candidates, and we're using marketing as a tactic, right, to really get the word out and get people excited about freedom. There's a lot more we can be doing with political impact, and there's a couple of investments I want to put on your radar so that not only everyone here in the room can think about that for later today, but all of our membership can think about the ways that we are doing this as a team. So number one, we want to make sure that we're translating all that energy, all those ideas of political action into concrete projects that can move the needle. Reed mentions a really great point about Yemen. I hear from a lot of activists in the space about anti-war opportunities, and we've tried to respond really nimbly to those in the past quarter. What we're finding is the more lead time we have where someone can sit down as a strategist and go, you know what would really change America on our position in Yemen? What if we did this, we did this, we did this? We want to make sure it's not just a group of people throwing ideas out and saying, what if we did this this weekend? We want to empower people to sit down and think about it, and that's all they think about as a strategist. And so we want to make sure we are working on these concrete projects that can move the needle. We already have a bunch of these going. For example, yesterday we heard a lot of great reports on ballot access, for example. That's something that's off and running. There's a lot of issues that we are working on that could benefit from the same type of strategy. So to do that, number 2, we want to harness volunteers, and we want to recruit and empower teams of volunteers to work on national political impact projects. This could be related to an issue, or it could be related to things like helping us hone the way that we handle data. We already have a bunch of teams that do this, particularly in the CRM and data space, but we want to open it up to more members so that they can find a way to connect with us. And to do that, we are going to be building a portal where people can essentially announce that they're interested in being a volunteer. We already have a place you can mention you're a volunteer, but it's not something that we act upon. So we're going to be doing a bit more investment in that, which works particularly well for political action ideas, as opposed to projects like, let's say, running our core infrastructure, right? That's stuff we want to have staff doing because it's mission critical. It has to work day in and day out. But thinking about creative ways to fight the state, that's something anyone can do, and we want to give ways that can happen. And just so you can imagine, as we're bringing in more volunteers and more ideas, we still want to keep that focus. So number 3 is really critical, and I just want to make everyone aware of this as we're talking about how we leverage talent. We'll go into great detail on our org chart later today, but just as a quick heads up, as we are hearing about all these projects we could be doing, we want to look across them, plan ahead, and then air traffic control them so we can feature the right ones at the right time in one big party cohesive structure without sacrificing any of our beautiful decentralization that we love as libertarians. Big shout out to our chair. She is really doing an amazing job doing this naturally today. A lot of our strategy around what we do and when has been handled by her, and we want to keep fleshing out people who can make sure that we are doing activism, building coalitions, creating opportunities to do great messaging, all the amazing things that we can do. We want to do that all in one calendar that's very organized. So with that, there's a lot more we can be doing with political impact, but I hope what you're seeing today is that we are starting to think about it as a big multifaceted strategy that we can tackle. And I know we're coming up in about 13 minutes left, so I'm gonna give a quick roundup of a couple of actions that we told you about today, and then we'll jump into questions. If you don't mind going 2 slides ahead. I just wanted to put up, oh, that's very difficult to see, don't worry, I will read it for you. All the goals that you passed in a couple months ago that we want to tackle during the administration of this LNC and relate back to you what staff is doing in the near term to act on these. A lot of what we talked about today, we've already, interfaces with not one, but maybe multiple of these objectives, but let's just go through them one by one so you're feeling reassured that we are working on it and we're giving the body opportunities to work on it. So number 1, regain the Project Archimedes membership levels, and actually number 2, expand our donor base. A lot of these go hand in hand. One of the most exciting things that we're doing starting tomorrow is we're sitting down as a team, we're getting all of our ideas onto a board, and we're sorting out, okay, what are the number 1 things we could be doing to grow in November, December, January, following the midterm elections. We already talked about those at length today, a lot of those ideas, but really working on how we can recruit, retain, and recapture. We're also going to be making a lot of exciting investments in talent here. And again, we'll talk about that, I think, in the executive session later today. But in general, we want to make sure that we are going after growth aggressively, and that includes measuring it and figuring out what we're doing better, or what we're doing so we can do it better. On top of that, we know we want to expand our affiliate support and expand our candidate support. We have 2 really great committees who work on this as well. Something that we can do as staff in the immediate near future is to furnish everyone with data and make sure that the members and affiliate leaders feel that they're being heard and they're being reached out to. So we're going to give a pretty exciting, aggressive survey where we're letting people know we want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly about your experience and your ideas about how we can do it better. And we'll make sure we're furnishing the appropriate committees with that. And same goes for candidates. You're going to be hearing some great ideas from Angela a little bit later of some things we can be doing with that. But in general, we're going to start with that survey with staff and then go into how do we do an off-cycle year to make the most bang for our buck. And then finally, I've got exciting updates on these last 2. So the first one, perform market research so we can do targeted outreach and better understand our target demographic. As Drew mentioned, we know there's people already in our orbit that we can be surveying, but how about everybody else outside of that? We want to understand the people who are easiest and cheapest to reach, which is anyone who gets our email, but we also want to be doing a targeted study on how we can be growing the movement. That involves understanding things from a marketing angle and from a what it is we do angle. So that's kind of a phase 2 that we'll be working on in the end of the year. And then finally, further develop our voice so that formal communications, development, and social media can be more in alignment with each other. I'm really pleased to report that I observed very naturally that our development and communications team work extremely well together, as Reed touched on. So already this is starting to happen organically, but I'm also working with a volunteer who's actually with us today in the room, Anna Johnson, to figure out how we can be making things even more cohesive and understanding a formal brand profile. So we're going to be working on this with a lot of different members of our team. But we want to make sure that every single channel feels like the same person is talking out of them and just overall updating our voice. So a lot more to come on that, but that's what you can see from us in the months ahead. And just wanted to make sure you know that this is important to us in addition to all the other frameworks we talked about today. We've been talking a long time. I think we got 9 minutes for questions. So feel free to shoot those to me and I'll pull up any other members of the team if they're the better one to address that. Want to go to Q&A? Awesome. Thank you guys for listening so intently during that time. So do you have any more questions from the room? Just a stretch from Dave Benner?
Sure, and these don't have to be a right now answer.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we guys root for. It's amazing.
The first question is how we are defining overall earned media Reed's presentation. I don't need it now because I'm sure it's a complex formula, but as long as we get that.
No, that's a great point. So I'm going to touch on that a little bit now. And like I mentioned, this is the ambition that Reed and I have. This is extremely important to both of us, that what you measure is just as important as what you message. So we want to make sure we're doing that correctly. Earned media is a technical term, so let me describe that real quick. We have basically 3 different types of media that you can have as a marketer. One is what they call paid media. That means something you pay for. Very obvious, right there in the name. The second is owned media, and that means a channel that you control. So anytime we put something out on our Twitter, right, we control that channel. Earned media is what other people say about us without us being able to influence them. So we're not paying them, we're not forcing them, we're not doing it on our own channel. They're doing it of their own volition. So examples of earned media are classic things like press. And so Reed has done a lot of great work here already. It also includes when things go viral or when people react to it. Sometimes we do account, Twitter metrics, for example, in our earned media. But even more importantly, it also includes word of mouth, which happens online and offline. So earned media, really simply, it's about getting people excited about what we're doing, and they talk about it of their own volition, whether they're a corporation or an individual. That answer your question there? And we want to give you a nice mathematical one.
That's all I'm looking for. Thank you. I love that stuff.
Awesome. Oh, did you have another? Oh, go ahead.
I did, but please go ahead.
Well, no, I just want to amplify that question. As we all know, the media cycle and specific events precipitate earned media. So I'm just as interested in the timeline of, if you will, and maybe just pick out a specific period of time as to what events potentially drove, for example, the Ukrainian war statement.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Angela, go ahead. So I work really closely with Reed and Lainey pretty much every day. I work with both of them. So the format is usually Reed will contact me and he'll say, something is happening right now in the news. I need you to write a quote. And so I'm like, okay, I'll get it to you within whatever, 30 minutes, an hour. I write it up, I send it to him. He might make edits, suggestions, whatever. I okay it, I make changes, I send it, he sends it off. And then that usually generates immediate interest. So that will generate it in a few different ways. And there's probably more ways that Reed knows that I'm not even aware of. But from what I hear is it gets quoted in the newspaper, and then that newspaper might pass it off to somewhere else. And so another paper, they'll either reference Newsweek or they cite something else. It'll generate interviews for us. So the media calls me. So I've had interviews with Associated Press, Newsweek. I can't honestly remember them all. In the last couple of weeks, it's been almost 2 a day. It's really intense. And then it will also generate interest in going on to someone's show. So whether that's Austin Peterson or local radio in Louisiana, or whether that's Robbie Suave on the Hill. That's how we work with the earned media cycle. So when I'm thinking about earned media, that's the role that I play in it. And we write an op-ed. So I write an op-ed once a week, sometimes up to 2. Send it to him, he edits, sends it out, and we try to get them published everywhere.
Right. Excellent. I just want to point out that the level of, and the statistics don't lie, the level of media focus that we've been able to attain, particularly in the last 120 days, is exponentially higher than the sum total of media that we've gotten in the last 10 years.
And I think there's 2 reasons. One is, well, Reed is really skilled at this, right? And the other is I'm very responsive to what he needs. And I'm an experienced writer as well. So you have a really good team here. And under Lainey's direction, as they continue to build out that team and with more volunteers, it really does help. Another compliment to Angela on this, we're lucky to have not only someone who's a great leader and manager, but someone who's a great spokesperson. Our appeals team that does a lot of really good analysis behind the scenes that didn't even get to touch on with you today about what emails work really well. And what they found is time and time again, first person really, really helps. So if we applied that insight to the news, when we have a great spokesperson or great spokespeople, I know a lot of you do this too, and we've got a lot of people outside the formal party who do this, that generates a lot of attention. So thank you to Angela for being such a great spokesperson, because I think that is. I know we'll follow up with this later, but I would be remiss if I didn't say, if you ever want to write a first-person appeal, that helps, and our appeals team could use you. Yes, sorry, I want to make sure I'm going in the right order, so you want to go next, and then we'll kind of go down the list.
Heard the other day that we have a membership at the National Press Club.
Pardon me?
Did someone say we have a membership with National Press Club?
Not anymore.
Mr. McKeely.
Yeah, we haven't had it for years. I don't know if we still pay for it because we never used to use it for a very long time. Robert probably knows that.
That's pretty
canceled.
Great. And I'm not familiar on exactly what function that does. What I will say, Reed briefly mentioned this tool called Meltwater. Essentially, it works like a Rolodex where we're able to contact all kinds of media contacts, and it does amazing things for us in terms of measurement to understand every time we're mentioned on the internet. And we're making a bunch of other investments we'll hear about later today too. I'm going to go down this way and then we'll go back to Dave. Yeah.
Yeah, so, not that I want to be like the two major parties in any way. One thing that two major parties are very good at doing is turning some of these issues that we've talked about, and some of these emails and some of this earned media into fundraising opportunities.
Yeah.
And turning the fundraising opportunities, unfortunately, they have to be done kind of almost in the news cycle. So I didn't know if you could talk to whether that's being discussed, whether that's being done, what our plans are to take advantage of that, because I know past administrations in this party had no clue how to do that.
It's a great question. Let me tell you a little bit about what's going on. We could have a whole hour-long discussion just on this topic. So let's just say, let's keep talking about it over the next couple of months. None of us are going anywhere. We all have each other's information. So right now, our social media, or not our social media, our communications team has a rigorous process where they balance two things. One is being reactive and being really up on current events and understanding what's going on so they can seize on moments when something's trending on Twitter, when people are talking about something, when something big happens on a podcast that's very adjacent to us, relevant to us. All that reactive work goes well. Angela just gave some great examples. On top of that, we know that we'll be able to drive the narrative, and we want to do that. We don't just want to react to the news. We'll be able to do that the more we understand moments in time that we will be really effective. So Reed and has been working with the development team to outline a calendar of events that we can reasonably predict will generate a lot of interest, and we've been kind of taking baby steps at working on that. It's worked really well with appeal emails. We want to expand upon that. So I talked a little bit about recruiting more people who are volunteers to think about that, working on a strategic sort of overall plan. The more investment we make in this, the more we'll be able to do, but we've already started to work on this. What that means for the future is we want to be really good at reacting nimbly to the news and making sure fundraising can be a part of that. But the best impact we're going to have is when we are the ones setting the frame, and we are the ones who are getting proactive. A tangible thing that we are doing in the very next week is we are partnering with a firm to work on growth for an end-of-year fundraiser. This firm I'm really excited to work with. They've actually worked with campaigns all across the freedom ecosystem, and in their presentation they said exactly this thing where they were able to prepare channels in advance so that a candidate they were working with was called out in the news by a rival, and obviously did not plan that interaction, but they were able to fundraise hundreds of thousands of dollars because they had everything set up and ready to go, and they had a team who could act on it, just like Angela. So, great.
Thank you.
All right, Andrew, you're next. We'll go back to Dave.
So I really like the change to the monthly subscription. It's such a simple change, and you can more than double what you're bringing in. I guess this is more of a technical question because I don't know, all the little stuff about tech or the CRM or anything like that. But some states like Virginia that are on the CRM can use the joint membership thing option. If a state on the CRM wanted to do the same thing, do the monthly subscription, maybe they wanted to do a joint monthly subscription. A problem that we've had, at least this past year, we owe over $1,200 to National. Is there a way to kind of keep that from happening, keep an affiliate from having to worry about, sending the funds that they owe to National for those joint memberships?
That's a great question. I'm going to comment briefly, and I'll go to Robert. Overall, we want to make sure we are triaging issues like that in the same way that we're prioritizing projects. We want to triage and slot those issues into that, week-to-week, day-to-day activities. So number one, if there's an issue there, it's probably something best dealt with the details of our CRM team. Robert, did you want to comment on anything
Sure.
there? Yeah.
We've been encouraging Virginia for about the last few years to get on our national program. So the money flows down to you all, to Virginia versus the money flowing up. We find on our current joint program works much better. It's completely within the CRM. And I send a check at the beginning of every month for the prior month. And we're working on a way where we can actually split it so that you would automatically be paid and we would automatically be paid. For our part, you can be paid for your part. It's just a matter of paying a consultant to set that up, which will make it a lot easier for both of us to be paid. But the states that are currently actively participating on our joint programs, such as, especially California, for example, it's done very well. Iowa just started, that's doing very well. And the reports are automatically generated and I send the money forward at the beginning of every month. So once again, I encourage Virginia to get onto the national program, join the program instead of their own. And so that we don't have to wait literally a year or more for money.
I'll give them a nudge.
Awesome. And it sounds like something that can be followed up offline, but thank you for articulating that. Did that answer your question there? Awesome. And I think we're going to go to Dave as our last question, and then we will wrap up there.
And we'll be quick. So
Yeah, go for it.
thanks for all the presentation. My question is actually for Mr. Korea. You had talked about your weekly meetings of new members and learning about people's libertarian journeys, which has to be exciting. So I'm just curious, just out of sheer curiosity, what are some common themes people have been saying in the last months since this new term began, essentially?
People are really just excited about people are really excited about the direction that we're going as a party, and also just about the movement. People are excited to get involved, and that's why I really try to get to where they want to be within the party. We have so many opportunities. We have local opportunities, state opportunities, national volunteer opportunities. So that's where I try to gauge their interest, and they're coming from all over the place. Really, I mean, a lot of prominent members speaking about the party in podcasts and other forms of media, coming from Angela's op-ed articles that they read. So really just, I think the more involved we are, the more we're out there telling people, hey, if you want to be a part of this, we have all of these different opportunities for you to get involved. I think the better off we're going to be. And every time we're out there and our people are out there doing that, we see a big influx. We see people coming to Member Welcome Hangout saying, hey, I just watched this, I just saw this person, I met that person. And they're like, you have to join the Libertarian Party. And so I'm here. And so it's really a cool way to kind of figure out where people are. I definitely encourage everybody. If anybody's watching this and they're thinking about joining the party, join the party. And then come to the Member Welcome and tell me that I was the one, because that'd be cool.
Just real quick, are LNC members welcome on this call to participate?
I actually really want to talk to Lady about this in our long-term strategic planning coming up soon. I would love to have anybody, especially LNC members, come to these member welcome hangouts. If we can get a solid, concrete, long-term calendar where, hey, maybe in a month Pat Ford's going to be on, maybe the next week when we have Dave, when we have Angela, that we have everybody. Not only can we broadcast that out from the party and advertise it to our members, but then you all can go to your members. And I'm sure you have people that you're working constantly, that you're on the fence, they're on the fence, they want to join the party. Here's a great way, join the party and then come hang out with me. I'll Member Welcome Hangout. I really want to leverage as many networks as possible to try and boost that program and get in new members.
Awesome. And I know I want to speak on that real quick. I just want to make sure in terms of time, do you want to keep doing questions or we're good for about up to 5 minutes. Up to 5 minutes. Awesome. Well, so let me just say one other thing to tie into stuff. So Drew is on the front lines, like you mentioned there, Dave, being able to listen to new members. And so is Gabby. Gabby talks to all of our donors. And something I love about Gabby is in every single conversation we're in, I'm very businessy and strategic. And I'm like, what if we are launching this fundraiser or that fundraiser? And she's always reminding me, hey, the number one thing we want to be doing with donors is listening. So Gabby also hears a lot of what people are interested in and excited about in the party. And one big reason that we're doing these surveys is Gabby and Drew, they're on the front lines hearing from people. We want to be able to quantify and kind of show you the shape of what people are interested in, how they're hearing about us, et cetera. So I hope the survey data can do that for you. And thank you again, Gabby, for always making sure about what donors are interested in, and actually what we want to sell them. So with that, let me just make sure again.
We have a question for Carrie Ann, and then if it's all right, I'd like to take a question from, it's Dustin Jan back there.
It's more a couple comments with the I'm sorry, I'm so losing my voice, with the welcome hangouts. There used to be regularly LNC members that would give a presentation on how to get involved, like have a whole spiel on how to get involved, and I thought it was really helpful. That was something that was done in the past. I heard earlier, and this is probably true for most, that, yeah, the t-shirts or whatever gifts we give out, I just anecdotally, the only reason I'm here today is because you guys gave me a damn t-shirt. Like, I joined the party on a whim one day, and then I saw a Facebook ad for a t-shirt, and I'm like, damn, that's a sweet t-shirt. So I only signed up for National for that t-shirt, and really everything just catapulted.
I don't want to spoil anything. We have a.
Yeah, but I don't underestimate.
In the works.
People on base, they do see, and they're like, if it's a good shirt, they're like, damn, I want that shirt, so don't, the shirts are a good hook. But lastly, have you guys considered, because we started to do this a couple terms ago, but then it kind of fell through the cracks. If there are more regional or local news outlets that want a comment, that sometimes if you're like, and I'm just gonna pick on Pat Ford, like say it's a news outlet in Rhode Island, you go, hey, can I hook you up with a national committee member that's from your local area? Because a lot of time these local news like to hear from a local person.
It's a really interesting idea, and that's why I brought up this point about first person appeals really succeeding. Angela's been doing an amazing job as a spokesperson. How do we figure that out?
It depends on what area it is, and sometimes I do pass them off, and I've suggested Dave Benner a couple of times.
Yeah.
Because we tend to get more, right now at least, more local news interest from that part of the country.
Oh, it happens, yeah.
Yeah, and I think what's important there is not only are we figuring out how we can scale, we only have one Angela, but we still want air traffic control, so it's great that we're making sure that.
I just run it all back through.
Right,
Reed will ask me, do you want to do this interview? And sometimes I have a conflict, and I'm like, I think that, why don't you try Dave or even Stephen DeCayla, depending on where it's at, the region, yeah.
And then, so I guess let's go to Dustin, maybe we can wrap up with, and then we'll go.
Yeah, I'm having an announcement.
Okay, perfect, yeah. Dustin, did you still have a question?
Yeah, my question is, how do people find out about the member accounts? Is that like when they sign up to get email?
Yeah, so I'm actually really excited about moving forward post CRM migration with that. So typically when we were on Razor's Edge, it would be a weekly email. Obviously they get the link in their welcome email that's auto-generated, but then we would follow up as staff as well to anybody within a particular window saying, hey, we have this member welcome hangout, it was more specific. I'm really excited to automate that process through City CRM so that it's hitting them immediately. We can even do follow-ups, get creative with it. If we have guests that are lined up and planned to go, we can even have a personalized message from them to that group of people, welcome, inviting them to that welcome hangout. So really excited to get on board with that, and any other ways that anybody feels we can promote that, obviously are welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I mentioned, staff's been starting that, or not starting, we're taking some time to specially focus on that tomorrow, but you're all welcome to contribute ideas tomorrow and then in the months to come so we can triage them and get the biggest impact ones done. I think we have one more question, and Angela, we'll go to you.
Yeah, I had a question. You just briefly brought up this idea of these sort of sporadic or like these volunteers that are coming in a little bit less formally, almost like they're wanting to contribute, help do these dynamic things that the base staff, like they're sticking with the solid things, but these groups might be able to come up with new ideas and do some work that might be able to develop some things that maybe staff doesn't have time, or it's not the highest priority, but it has a lot of potential and it's not just distracting from the staff. I'm wondering, what that looks like, how the communication would happen so that they're actually serving our direction and not, being some weird offshoot that's disconnected. And I'm very interested in that.
Yeah.
I love being parts of teams, making that fun and interesting, and I want to participate.
Awesome. Let me make 2 comments on this. We're going to hear even more about the possibilities here in our talent discussion of the budget later today. So I know a bunch of that will happen in executive session, so looking forward to expand then. As a brief preview, let me just make this high-level comment. I know as libertarians, we love our local politics. Local politics is not only important to us because we believe government should be more local, but it's also a great place that we have winnable opportunities to influence things. I think what that tends to do for a national party and the focus that we're all at is that a lot of our energy with volunteers gets directed into their local chapter or their state chapter. That's all incredible, but some things are actually best done at a national level, whether it's like a federal approach or whether it's something that scales like marketing or data or tech, or whether it's, trying to message things even outside of our borders, right, around the world. So those are the types of things we would recruit people on. There's a whole lot of stuff we want to do in order to make sure that's possible for people to do without being in sheer chaos. So the very first thing is we want to make it possible for someone to even let us know they exist and they have our skills that technically exist in the site stage, but it's not very prominent and it's not aligned to all the types of projects we want to do.
And do those funnels, getting people, oh, you really want to volunteer, you have these talents, like, is there a way through their experience to get that notification where to go?
Exactly. So you can imagine step 1 is just we know who people are, they have skills or they have passions. That's great. Step 2, we can then reach out to people to tap them for another project, and then over time we could do things like literally recruit like we would for a job. So we can get better and better at it, and the most unsexy but very important step is to just know who they are so that they can let us know and that we want their help.
It's so exciting.
Great. With that, I just want to give a quick moment of closing, and I'll pass it to you for your announcement. It has been such a fun time getting to work with the staff and get to know how the organization works. Again, if there's anything I leave you with today, it's clear that there's huge momentum in this movement and so many good ideas in this room with our staff and then all of our members and people who are just noticing that something is happening. What we're trying to do is harness that energy and make it as focused as possible so we're not just talking about good ideas, but we're getting a bunch of big ones done and growing the movement. So thank you for the opportunity to do that. Let me hand it off to Angela.
So, Madam Chair, just because you'll love this.
I'm still on this topic.
You'll love this. Okay. Someone in YouTube chat just upped to a monthly membership based upon what was said here.
Lovely.
Please copycat.
So Reed mentioned he has a great team of volunteers, which he does. I want to kind of highlight that. We have Dave Minner who assists on Twitter. Twitter generates a lot of earned media for us. But our Instagram is also really beautiful, and we have incredible graphic design and layout, and that's by Carrie And Connor holds down our Facebook too. So for all of you boomers who can't figure out Instagram, Connor has like additional people helping him, and I'm not even sure who all they are. But thank you guys for holding it down for everybody else who hates Twitter, and also probably has less migraines and emotional disorders because I stay off of Twitter. Thank you guys.
Thank you all so much.
So I think we're about to break for lunch. Mr. Kraus.
Thumbs up.
Lunch is ready, so we're gonna be back at approximately what time? Let me unplug this. Oh, we didn't put that down. How are we good for, are we good for an hour?
Yes.
Okay, so let's come back at 1:15 p.m. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Story funnels where it's like based on your
Yeah, I try to get minutes out as soon as possible, but it's not even a matter of getting them out. I have to get a way of sure. To get the reports.
I'll go review.
Just because that's really.